If we could come back to our seats, we'll get started here. Okay, we will get started this morning. We're a rowdy bunch this morning. We start with a public hearing, and I am going to start by reading the public hearing address. I'm Mark Pendergraft, and I'll be chairing this morning's public hearing. This is a public hearing for proposed Regional District of Okanagan-Snoqualmine Bylaws number 2607.27 2025 and 2800.43 2025. The proposed bylaws and related information, including written comments received to date, are available for review at the head table. At this public hearing, all persons wishing to speak will be given an opportunity to do so and are asked to commence their remarks by stating their name and address. Written comments may be submitted before closure of this public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak at this public hearing is asked to do one of the following. If you are participating in person, please step up to the microphone at the front. And if you are participating by a computer, please click the raise hand button, which can be found in the participants panel on the right-hand side of your computer screen. This will indicate that you wish to speak. If you are participating by a phone, please press *3 on your phone's keypad. This will also indicate that you wish to speak. Having indicated that you wish to speak, you will then be placed in a queue until invited to speak. All speakers will be restricted to a time limit of 5 minutes until everyone who wishes to speak has had an opportunity to do so. Anyone wishing to speak a second time may do so by following the same protocol of stepping up to the microphone, selecting the raise hand button on your computer, or by pressing *3 on your phone's keypad. To submit written comments, please submit them prior to the close of this public hearing by emailing them to planning@rdos.bc.ca, or for those attending in person, placing them at the head table. I will now ask Shannon Duong, planner, to outline the specifics of the proposed bylaws. Please go ahead, Shannon.
Thank you. And I do just have a PowerPoint presentation. Great, thank you. So this public hearing does relate to proposed amendment bylaw numbers 2603.27 and 2800.43. Sorry, it's not working. So the project area that is proposed to be impacted by these two amendment bylaws would be the communities of Heritage Hills, Lakeshore Highlands, and Vintage Views, which are in electoral area D. This community is located between the city of Penticton and Okanagan Falls on the east side of Skaha Lake. Next slide. So the lands within this area are serviced by the Lakeshore Waterworks system, and for select properties, the Vintage Views wastewater system as well. Both of these systems are known to have deficiencies and do require upgrades. Specifically for Vintage Views wastewater system, a provincial pollution prevention order does apply, which prohibits the connection of new units to that wastewater system. Just a little bit of background on the small scale multi-unit housing requirements under the Local Government Act. So as the board is aware, local governments are required or were required to amend their zoning bylaws to allow for the prescribed minimum densities within restricted zones as per the Local Government Act. And the deadline to do this was June 30th, 2024. The Act does also prescribe a mechanism for the Minister of Housing to have the discretion to grant extensions to this deadline, specifically in cases where there are extenuating circumstances which are prescribed under the Act. And in the case of this particular project, one of the extenuating circumstances would be that infrastructure upgrades would be needed to address public health, safety, or environmental issues. So the regional district did submit an application for an extension, which was approved by the minister, allowing us to have an extension to December 30th, 2030. And on May 9th, 2024, the board initiated associated bylaw amendments to facilitate this. So with that in mind, proposed OCP amendment bylaw number 2603.27 proposes to introduce a couple new policies under the small holdings and low density residential designation, specifically speaking to restricting accessory residential densities on those lands that are serviced by the Lakeshore Waterworks system, as well as the Vintage Views wastewater system. And that's specifically due to the existing limitations and associated upgrades that are required to those infrastructure systems. Another policy that is proposed to be introduced includes supporting reviewing the permitted residential densities on those lands serviced by those two community systems once system upgrades have been completed, which would allow for secondary suites and accessory dwellings on those parcels. With respect to zoning amendment bylaw number 2800.43, this bylaw does propose to amend the zoning of parcels under the Okanagan Valley zoning bylaw, such that the parcels which are currently zoned as small holdings 1 site specific, and small holdings 3 would be rezoned to a new small holdings Heritage Hills and Lakeshore Highlands, so an SH7 zone, as well as for those site specific parcels, a small holdings Heritage Hills and Lakeshore Highlands site specific or SH7S zone. Now for the parcels within the Vintage Views wastewater system local service area, this amendment bylaw does propose to rezone the parcels which are currently zoned low density residential 2 to low density residential Vintage Views or the RS6 zone. While the proposed small holdings 7 and small holdings 7 site specific zones would largely carry forward the allowances that are permitted within the existing small holdings 1 zone, as well as the building envelope provisions, there are some distinct differences that we are proposing. So just taking that back a little bit, the proposed RS6 zone would also be carrying forward what is currently permitted under the low density residential 2 zone. So for the most part, the amendment bylaw is proposing to carry forward what's permitted, setbacks, building height, things like that. But there are some key distinguishing features that we are proposing to change. So specifically, this amendment bylaw proposes to restrict densities in the proposed SH7, SH7S, and RS6 zones to one single detached dwelling in recognition of those infrastructure deficiencies. Additionally, new construction of single detached dwellings on lands within the Vintage Views wastewater system service area. So this comprises of those parcels in the proposed RS6 zone, as well as applicable lands within the SH7S zone, which are also in the Vintage Views wastewater system. Those would be required to connect to a community water and community sewer system. And lastly, there are some site-specific provisions that do apply to lands within the existing small holdings 1 site-specific zone, and those are proposed to be carried forward over to the small holdings 7 site-specific zone. And thank you.
Okay, thank you for that, Shannon. I will now declare this public hearing open and ask if there is anyone who wishes to speak to the proposed bylaws. I will ask a second time, is there anyone who wishes to speak to the proposed bylaws? Am I missing any hands online, Adam, that you're seeing that I'm not? I'm not seeing any hands on here, but on Jill and okay. I can ask Adam to let them speak. If you could start by stating your name and address, go ahead.
Yes, this is Jill and Jim Rowland. Address is 162 Chadwell Place, part of the Vintage Views development. And my question or my concern is obviously the rezoning from RS2 to RS6 eliminates that secondary suite until the upgrades have been completed. I know this extension's till 2030, but at some point during the upgrades of these systems and the pollution order is removed, would we be then granted to build our home with a secondary suite?
Okay, I can ask staff to clarify that.
The board would have the ability to consider amending the bylaw at that point to allow for the currently permitted residential density. So it would just have to go through a bylaw amendment process again to roll it back, but there's nothing stopping the board from considering it earlier than December 30th, 2030.
Okay. Anything further? Anybody else wishing to speak? Director Taylor, you're seeing someone else?
Ethan Revolkin is asking to speak.
Okay. If Ethan is online, go ahead, please. Seeing anybody? Ethan, if you can hear us, I think you need to unmute and you should be good to go. Seems to be technical difficulties. Try again, Ethan.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, starting to hear you.
Okay, is that good?
Yep, that's great. Go ahead.
Okay. So I live at 320 Heritage Boulevard. I'm connected to the water, but not the wastewater system. I'm on septic. I sent an email expressing my concern against these proposals. As a regular human being with limited income, I'm looking at a massive bill for the water system, and one of the potential solutions to help cover these increased costs would be to potentially have suite income. I don't think I'm alone in this, and I encourage everybody to vote no on this, or make an exception for people that are not connected to the wastewater system. They could just go under the usual guidelines of septic requirements. It doesn't seem fair to me that someone on septic, especially people that live in Skaha states for 20 plus years, can't build a basement suite to start helping to cover these increased costs. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for the comments. Anybody else wishing to speak to these proposed bylaws? If you could just step up to the microphone there, and there's a
where I live and everything. And just if you can explain this to me, this place right here, that's my family's home. We built it in 64. So it says this and it's changing, wants to change to that. What does it mean to me?
Get your address and your name first.
My name's Carol Amundsen. I live at
Hit the green button or the button in the center and the green light should come on.
my name's Carol Amundsen. I live at 5895 East Side Road. My parents built the place in 64. And it's I didn't so I get this, and it shows these few places in pink that's changes from small holdings one to this other, and I just wonder what it actually means.
Go ahead, Shannon.
Yes,
Sorry,
no,
that's
okay.
And I've even gone for a walk.
So just like in summary, I kind of gave the presentation that kind of described this, but for the most part, what it's being rezoned to. So small holdings 1, 2 small holdings, Heritage Hills, Lakeshore Highlands. So that's the SH7 zone. It would largely carry over the permitted uses that are within the small holdings 1 zone. So the permitted uses generally wouldn't be changing, with the exception of the imposition of a maximum density cap at 1 principal dwelling unit. So that would be a single detached dwelling. This would remove the ability to have a secondary suite or accessory dwelling due to the infrastructure deficiencies at the time. But everything else in terms of setbacks, building height, other building envelope requirements would remain the same as what it currently is.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else wishing to speak? I'll ask once again, anybody wishing to speak? Ma'am, come up to the front if you would, please. And this is,
Okay, push the button.
yes.
Oh, okay. My name is Julie McNamee. I own a vacant property at the present time. I don't know if I'm on septic or if there's no septic there at all, or if I'm on wastewater, and how do I find that out? Makes a difference if I'm planning to build, which one it is, and if I decide to sell.
Shanna?
Do you know the civic address?
Oh, yeah, 211 Sunnybrook.
Sunnybrook, okay. It's hard to like pin which exact property yours is.
Where it is.
I don't have.
Yeah, that's something that staff can get back to you with.
Can we do that?
Yeah, go ahead, CAO.
What I would recommend is that you just go to the staff out in front, give the address, and they'll tell you the information.
Okay, okay.
Okay. Anybody else wishing to speak? This is give comments on the proposals. I'll ask for the third and final time, and I'll double check with Adam that I'm not missing somebody online. Okay. Seeing no other hands, we'll close this public hearing at 9:17. And thank you everybody for attending and your patience. We have, next up is the Protective Services Committee, and I'm going to go to Director Roberts for that.
Thank you.
And-
Good morning. And
We'll just wait for the RCMP to
Yeah.
come in. Before I go to Director Roberts, I am going to say that people probably notice there's a few changes to the audio visual system. It may look a little different on our screens, and there may be a few bugs that need to be worked out. So a bit of patience throughout the day will be helpful. Thanks. Go ahead, Director Roberts.
I'd like to call to order the Protective Services Committee for 9:18. Could I have a motion to accept the agenda and a secondary? Thank you. All in favor? All right, well, we'll just let our delegation have a seat. Yeah, it changes. Well, good morning, Superintendent McKenna. The table is yours.
Well, good morning, and thank you so much for having us. We have a large contingent, and we'll try and streamline our information. And I know that from the Penticton rural area, that Staff Sergeant Badamanek was in touch with all of the directors to review the data from Q1 and generated some good discussions, I'm told. And I really welcome that feedback, but I like the one-on-one conversations that Bob is having with our directors. I had the privilege of taking a guided tour. I've been through Naramata many times, but I had an opportunity to spend significant amount of time there with Bob 2 weeks ago, and just get the lay of the land to just really help inform some of the opinions and decisions around various things going on in that area. So thanks to Bob for that. There were some statistics that were forwarded that review the highlights of each of our areas in relation to our annual performance plans that would have been reviewed with the mayor's councils, and there was consultation with all of the directors to help form the annual performance plans of all of our regional areas. And if you have any questions in relation to that, I encourage you to speak directly with your area commanders. I've also forwarded a PowerPoint presentation of which I do not see on the screen, but I'm not sure if all of you have in front of you. You do? Okay.
No, yeah.
Okay.
If you go right here to the attachments.
So the information I'll be discussing today is in relation to Q1 for, which encompasses January 1st to March 31st. Specifically, I will speak on the Penticton rural area. The councillors and representatives from the city of Penticton had an opportunity to hear some of this information at my most recent update. So I apologize if any of that is a repeat, but it will be. One of the things I'd like to review are some of the highlights from the year that we had in relation to our integrated crisis response team, which does support the city of Penticton and the Penticton rural areas. And what I can tell you is, without a doubt, an absolute resounding success. The team, which is a partnership with Interior Health and the RCMP, continues to provide essential services to those people in community experiencing mental health and addiction crisis. What I can tell you, in the year that partnership has been running, the support and connection with community who provide that extra care for people that maybe need those connections to be facilitated has actually been a key takeaway. What has also been very beneficial is the additional lens of training and information that nurses can provide to our officers, and really expanding their knowledge and understanding of crisis de-escalation, how to engage and support those people who are experiencing a crisis, and really making sure that there's that dissection around, is this a response that the police should be going to? Is this something that we should be really making that connection with health and supports? And so a lot of success with that. What we have seen consistently is longer with those people that we would call repeat or high volume callers. Once we've been able to be engaged with them, we have seen longer periods of, I would say, where they are supported, they're medicated, and the interactions that they have with police are fewer and farther between. And so that is definitely an absolute takeaway. Like I said, there continues to be excellent collaboration and communication with Interior Health to ensure our community members are on extended leave under the Mental Health Act receive their medications as well. And this greatly reduces the calls for service when these clients are being actively supported. One of the other things is the community policing team has initiated, in partnership with the city and other community partners, the Youth Action Table. And what this is a bringing together from a grant that was received, those people and those services in the community that can support at-risk youth, where we all come together and identify youth and community that maybe need those additional supports. And with that consultative group, getting those youth connected, and maybe it's through restorative justice program as it relates to community policing, or connecting with the right partners, whether it's the ministry and maybe Crown has Crown won't be at the table, my apologies, but that engagement with Crown Council, it will also be important in relation to some of the community, the youth that we're coming in touch with in the community. So more to follow on that, as this is really now just in the inception phase, and what and who they're able to get to come to the table and support. I will get back to you at our next report out. And youth engagement is absolutely a priority for our detachment. Just really making sure that we're connecting in community through the support of our community policing team, whether it's presentations. I know that they've been out in Oliver, Osoyoos. They were in OK Falls this week in relation to online presentations, consent, online exploitation, and just giving the kids a sense of awareness of what is going out in community and what to be aware of. And so that continues to happen. We'd like to expand that again next year in terms of the groups that we are being able to provide this training to. We're looking at expanding the training to encompass the grade 10, 11, and 12. Typically, we've been sort of focusing on the kids not between grade 6 to grade 9. So more to follow on that. And I know there's lots of support from the school district in relation to that. Moving to the next slide, some of our achievements in relation to impacting crime trends is we continue to be very successful in our hotspot locations. This now greatly impacts the city, but we did expand this project to the regional area where we're able to identify within each of the communities where we see trends or higher call volumes and make that a focus of the proactive work that's being done. And so that will vary in most of the communities in terms of their strategies to deal with that. But that remains a focus of time when there's the ability to do that proactive work. So we're using that same principle in the region, and it continues to be successful in the city and in some of our outlying areas where we had a focus during that. One of our hotspot locations being in OK Falls, where we saw an uptick of theft of motor vehicles. Proactive communications was based on feedback that I received from the city during our community consultative groups, and also from the directors on how the police communicate. And it's not only necessarily where there's a public safety situation, but what are the police up to in the communities that we serve? And so we have continued now for 1 year. We've had our social media platform. We work with our community policing team and get proactive messaging out in relation to crime trends. And that continues to be a priority for us. And we've seen a lot of positive feedback. We've partnered with the city public safety team when there's an opportunity to do shared messaging with bylaws, the fire department, and the police. And these messages also are obviously focused on our regional areas. And so this social media platform does encompass the entire South Okanagan, Similkameen, and we've had opportunities to do shared communications out to your communities as well. We are heading into the summer season, and with that comes a bit of a strategy change on how we do our policing. We like to make sure we're starting this planning in January to start those conversations about community events and various celebrations we're having in all of the communities in the South Okanagan around the tourism that we see and influx in our populations, and we welcome everybody to come to visit, but with that comes more policing responsibilities. So we do our seasonal policing preparation with the best of intention to make sure that we increase visibility, ensure a sense of safety in all of our communities. And I'm happy to report that that plan is unfolding, and we are seeing the collaboration across the entire Southeast District where we see gaps in our ability to sort of expand our contingents. We are calling in resources from the Southeast District to support us with those extra visible numbers. We were successful in obtaining a municipal crime reviewer for the Penticton detachment. This crime reviewer will assist us in assessing our files for how we do our records management, reviewing for compliance with policy, and making sure the standard of our investigations are where they need to be. if they're to be concluded, if they're to be forward for report to Crown assessments, and really making sure that we are where we need to be as a detachment, keeping up with the expectations of our, not only our own organization, but BC provincial policing standards, and really just, it's an internal process to make sure that we are modern and progressive and in compliance. And so that is a huge win, and we're seeing the benefits of that. Now, actually only having that position for 3 months, I can already tell the impacts that have been made. You will see again an increase of boat patrols on the Okanagan and Lake Skaha. I was just informed this morning that we have members of the BC Marine Section, which is a provincial unit, coming to Lake Okanagan, and I have invited them to visit the south end of Okanagan Lake. We have a boat on Skaha Lake, and I know that the fire department just got a new boat for the Okanagan Lake as well. So we will continue to do that, and we've had a few new boat operators trained this year. We would like to see our officers out in your community on bikes when at all possible. Not all of the detachments have that. We do have quads in some of the rural areas. We had some additional people trained. I know Sergeant Potter was involved in getting some officers trained in the region. And I know Princeton's well equipped to do that patrol, as well as Karamias. We will, and we have invited members of the Gang Enforcement Unit from CFSEU, which is the Combined Forces Section. It's a provincial funded, to come to our communities. So if you notice officers in dark fatigues with various emblems on their shoulders that don't look like RCMP, it's an integrated unit of municipal agencies. Please don't worry, they're there to make a presence, to make an impact, and I really appreciate the support that they're giving our communities. And we have had an invitation out to Impact, which is also the provincial unit that looks after auto theft. I think they are slated to come for September, October. They've got a busy agenda, but it's just nice to leverage those provincial units to come and support our communities in the South Okanagan. And I would like to welcome Sergeant Brian Evans. For those of you that don't know Brian, he is the sergeant in charge of BC Highway Patrol in Karamias. He was formerly a member of Penticton, and I've totally leveraged that relationship and asked him to come and attend and present, because they are an absolute essential partner that we have in the South Okanagan. Brian and the team that he leads are always supporting us with various initiatives that fall under their mandate, but they also go above and beyond, and they're helping us with some recruiting, and some of their team come and work some extra overtime shifts in our community. So Brian's going to review some of the stats and just give you a little bit of background on BC Highway Patrol, their mandate, and how they support the South Okanagan. So over to you, Brian.
Thank you, ma'am, for that. And thank you for the opportunity to be here to speak to everybody. I'll just give a very brief kind of overview of what our mandate is, which is essentially the prevention of fatal or serious motor vehicle injury collisions within our patrol area. Beyond that, we conduct investigations into fatal criminal motor vehicle collisions. And we have several other sub-mandates, such as recruiting and reconciliation and other aspects that we are focused on as a part of our overall mandate. We're based out of Karamias. We have 13 positions in total, 2 positions located in Princeton, and the remainder are located in Karamias. We support the region, essentially all of the regional district, and including a little bit into the Kootenay boundary, going over towards Rock Creek. Our members are out there conducting enforcement based upon strategic areas where we focus on high crash locations. So where we look at our numbers that have reported collisions and injury collisions, and we focus on those areas as far as our primary areas of enforcement. There's 3 areas that we focus on. One of them is in Princeton, from Whipsaw out to Eastgate. Another is in Penticton, going from Skaha Lake all the way out to the junction of Highway 3 and 3A in Karamias. And the last one is from Oliver Ranch Road all the way to Osoyoos. junction of 3 and 97. So our members are proactive, focusing on high-risk driving behaviors and visibility to slow traffic down and hopefully have an impact on reducing those fatal collisions and injury collisions. As far as the stats go, we monitor those very closely. They're all reported and monitored or entered into a system on a daily basis, essentially. So when we write a ticket, it automatically goes into the system where it was located, where it was written, and exactly what the violation was. So we have a good ability to determine where the problem areas are. So as far as the first quarter for this year, keep in mind these are focused on not directly in the communities themselves, but generally outside of the community. So Penticton would encompass quite a large area, including Highway 97 out to Summerland. But for first quarter in Karamias, we have 89 contacts for Karamias. Oliver is 113 contacts. Soyuz 111, Penticton 559, Princeton 389, and Summerland 96. So that's for a total of 1,357 contacts with our members having a contact with a member of the public for some type of violation. So that's kind of a good overview of kind of what we're doing and the impact we can or how we're contributing. Beyond that, we, like Superintendent McCandy said, we support through providing additional resources in the event. If there's a significant incident that's happening in the community, we'll respond as well. If members are short in Karamias or any of these other locations where we are, we can step up and respond as a first responder to those incidents, being essentially an extra resource in the event of an emergency. So we also get involved, obviously, in wildfires or any other natural disaster incidents. So we're a resource there to primarily perform our primary mandate, but also provide support to that. We also have two lines of funding. I'll just speak very briefly about that. So we have the provincial team, and we also have what's called URSU, which is funded primarily by ICBC. On our URSU side, we'll focus more so within some of the municipalities. So that they work sometimes in Penticton. You'll see them often in here doing impaired driving enforcement and things like that. So we're not just focused on provincial areas, but we're within the municipalities, and we work with our area commanders to determine where they might want some additional enforcement or help focus on. And yeah, that's essentially Cole's note of where we're at.
Thank you, Brian. And I appreciate the RDOS allowing for me to invite Brian. I will continue to receive his quarterly updates in relation to traffic stats. And I think there's benefit of as and when required, engaging with Brian to present is a nice check-in for the RDOS. And so we will continue on that pattern of when appropriate and at least once a year for sure, having Brian come to the table and engage with each and every one of you in your communities. So I'm happy to answer any questions in relation to my presentation and Brian. And I know just for the sake of time, I've kind of ended my presentation there to let all of my other colleagues speak. So
Okay, perfect. The first question I see that's up is Director Coyne.
Surprise, surprise. Brian, I was just wondering how far up Merritt Highway 5A do you guys go?
Essentially Pike Mountain.
Pike Mountain.
Yeah.
So I had the pleasure of driving that every day for a week, a couple weeks ago. Is there any way we can get somebody to just patrol once in a blue moon out there and slow some people down, because it gets pretty crazy out there?
Yeah, no, we certainly can add that to the list. It's statistically, there's not a lot of crashes out there. So we try to focus on the crash areas, but we certainly cover everywhere. And I've driven out there myself in the past just to do a little bit of a fly the flag and do some enforcement. So
Yeah.
we can certainly have our members
Just put
there.
the fear of God in people every now and then. I do want to say, like, on the way in today, I passed two of your guys. So I mean, the increased presence on between Princeton and Penticton is noticed, and thanks for that. I do have another question, and that's around the Under the Stars event that's coming in August. I don't know if you guys know about it or not. I'm sure Scott might have heard about it. It's a private rave on private property between Comont and Princeton. A few years ago, we had the fire and we had to try to evacuate all those people. It's on the same weekend as Tulameen Days. They're expecting upwards of 1,000 people this year at this event, with the added stress of Tulameen Days and it being August long weekend. I have some major concerns about it. It's kind of in the middle of no man's land between Tulameen Fire Response, Princeton Fire Response, and it's on private property, so there's nothing any of us can really do about it. So, have you guys talked strategies or like? I mean, we got lucky last time because we had enough members dealing with Tulameen Days that we could help, but 1,000 people. I mean, it's over double what it was last time.
Through the chair, definitely there'll be an operational plan for Tulameen Days in regards to Under the Stars. Those are conversations that obviously we need to have with Neil, yourself, and what sort of challenges these situations. I think that's probably a separate conversation that we should look at having. And I would ask for that opportunity to do that sooner than later so we can look at what, if anything, we have in relation to strategies around that. So let's book a calendar date and have a Teams meeting with Dan and Neil, and we'll go from there, if you don't mind. Not to take away, but I agree that there has to be some sort of collaboration and formal conversation around the strategy to deal with that. So thanks for bringing it up.
All right, thank you. Next up is Director Taylor.
Again, to Sergeant Evans, if I could. Just in OK Falls, I know you've done some work there. Would appreciate if you could conceivably get back before the end of school and just fly the flag, demonstrate a presence at the two highway crossings, Highway 97 and 10th, and Highway 97 and Cedar, particularly between 7:30 and 9 a.m. and 3 to 5:30 p.m.
Certainly mention that to the teams that are working. I'll have my members try to be there around school, in and out.
Yeah.
And hopefully get a little bit of presence, slow people down.
Follow up?
Yeah, it's actually, the school compounds it, but it's surprising how much traffic is going through there. It's steady. Like you have to wait quite a while. We'd almost like a light there. But so my point is, it's not just school, it's volume of traffic, and if they have opportunity, they're going quickly.
Yep, 50 zone there. We'll see what we can do.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, well, next up is Director Johansson.
Thanks, Chair. I'm just wondering if how much input your group has on speed limits in the area that you patrol, and I'm thinking in particular that area west of Princeton, that slow 80-kilometer zone, and then you get to Sunday Summit and you can do 100 down the hill through the winding corner. Like, I've complained to the mayor about this at Princeton already, but
speak to that. That's very, very little, unfortunately. So Ministry of Transportation and Highways and infrastructure, has a process where they determine the speed limits based upon a number of factors. I think the issue with that area is the number of switchbacks that pass through there before and after, and that's why they've done it. That's an assumption on my part. Believe me, I speak to the public when we stop someone in there, and it's an issue. Yeah, for sure. So yeah, that's a Modi thing, and we do sit with them every so often, like every year, just to kind of have a meeting to go over some of the issues that arise. It's generally about what's causing crashes, not about where we can increase the limits. But we can certainly mention, I don't know what, it's out of my control essentially.
Any follow-up? No. Director Coyne?
Yeah, I'll give you background on that. It was one of those areas. It was refurbished just before all the speed limits went up. And then when the new government came in and they reduced all the speed limits, it happened to be one of the signs because it was 100 for about a week and a half, and then they dropped it back to 80 because that's what it was prior to the increase when all the other highways. So it kind of got caught in that, and now it's a 4-lane that's 80 kilometers going into a horrible 100-kilometer-an-hour corner.
For sure. It's a tough one when you pull people over. The question is, why is it 80? Yeah. And
Well, thank you. Yeah, well, thank you for that. Yeah, my wife wants me to take that to Victoria. I don't know why. Director Taylor.
Yeah, second, more generally speaking, just again, I think like everybody want to compliment the, I don't know the correct name, but the Car 40 program. Had some direct experience with that. Yeah, they're great people. So thank you very much on that. And then specific question, is there any initiative that you can use in rural communities like OK Falls or the surrounding area to encourage people to report or call in concerns? I think there's sometimes a feeling that the community will handle it itself. And sometimes that's a good thing, or a feeling that, well, there's no point in calling because it will take them 20 minutes or half an hour or 2 hours. So people don't call, and then we don't have numbers. And I'm not sure if our stats, which are great for OK Falls, they are great. I'm not talking traffic, but they're fantastic. But are they an accurate reflection of what's really going on?
My colleague was just chatting in my ear at your last comment about, are they accurate reflection? Were you talking about the statistics?
Well,
Yes.
yeah, I mean, the stats are obviously accurate to what's being called in.
Yes, you're absolutely correct. I mean, we can only respond through the chair. My apologies. We can only respond and or initiate an investigation based on the information we receive. And unfortunately, that is the nature of the work that we do. That being said, what we do encourage is messaging. That's that proactive piece about see something, say something, report it. There's the online reporting option as well. You know, if it's not a priority 1-2 call that requires an immediate response, it's a situation where we require a file number for an insurance purpose. We are your police of jurisdiction, and we want to provide you with the best response to the situation. And I always encourage people, if you're unsure, you know, call the police. And if it's not a police matter, we'll relate it and refer it to the people where it needs to go. And, you know, it is, it's one of those things where we've got a lot of challenges right now as it relates to people experiencing homelessness in areas that are in the rural areas that are not within municipalities. And the conversation usually starts with us. And what that says to me is that the communities and the people that we work with still come to us to start the conversation. And and that shows me that there are people still turning to us looking for direction. And we want to support those communities. And there is signage that can go up as it relates to community policing. I know that we have access to some of those signs. I know Dan got some of the signs around auto theft, and we have them hanging in some of the parks. We can order those for your municipalities with those emergency, non-emergency, and the referrals around the online reporting. So if you'd like to talk off online on that, and we can send out those messages to all the regional areas and the directors to look at some of that community policing signage that talk to the public about reporting and engaging with the police and what they can do and to deter various types of crimes. So happy to do that, and you're not wrong. We just have to continuously be that voice, encouraging people to reach out.
Well, thank you very much. And well, I'll have to follow up for Headley and get a bunch of sign. I have apologies, Director Gettens, your hand kind of blended into your background. I missed you. So Director Gettens.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks, Chair. Thanks for coming. Today is always a very interesting time to have a conversation like this. With you had mentioned a marine unit going on the South Okanagan Lake, and I was curious to hear more about what the role of the marine unit does. And I'm also wanted to just talk about the encampment that's on South Okanagan Lake, and we've been in a bit of a communication with that as well. I don't think it's been cleaned up. The main concerns that I'm hearing from citizens is the trash that's in the lake, and trying to get some help to get the trash out. I have talked with a few different ministries now, and it seems like nobody's gonna really wants to own that one. So I'm curious for your response, but the marine unit and what that marine unit does, and is there any follow-up on the encampment, especially around the garbage? Thanks.
Through the chair. So in relation to the Marine unit, I'm going to definitely defer to Sergeant Beta, who's actually trained in operating the boat. But what I can tell you is at the end of the day, it's presence on the lake. You know, when people are operating in the beautiful weather, we still have the same issues that arise in relation to impaired operation of boats, boat safety. We still see people drowning. You know, we've already had a couple, unfortunately, already out on the lake, not in our jurisdiction, but we see it time and time again. And so just basically those requirements of all the equipment and safety equipment that you're supposed to be carrying, how you tow, you know, making sure you have the safety precautions for any of the water skiing or other activities that are out on the lake. You know, making sure that we're, you know, if there's not supposed to be any wake, making sure you're compliant with how that piece, insurances that you're required, you know, and just basically, I know that for me personally, it's always a bit of a marriage tester when you're launching the boat and loading the boat. And so I know that that happens between other people, and there's, you know, aggressive behavior at the boat launch and who's waiting. So those are some of the main things that I see Marine section doing, but over to Sergeant Beta if I know I've missed something, so he's going to elaborate for you.
Actually, no, you covered it really well. So I would almost think you're an operator. It's very much what Superintendent McCandy said. A lot of it is focused around safety and ensuring people have their boating licenses. Ensuring people are of the right age to operate a vessel, or that they have the limited number of people on the boat that specific vessel allows for. Life jackets, a lot of people have life jackets, but the life jacket may not be suitable for our waters in Canada, being that it may not be Canadian approved. You can buy life jackets on the internet, but Canada has certain standards versus what the US may have. And further to that, a lot of people have life jackets that they put in their boat, have for 15, 20 years and never use. And because they have them, they think they're compliant, but life jackets do degrade over time. So we like to, if we stop and check someone and they have life jackets that look a bit old, we like to test those life jackets for buoyancy. And if they're older and not good enough for the standards today, we ask them to depart the water and purchase some new ones. But again, it really is about, we don't have the actual marine section come up. We have trained officers that operate the boat and are trained in marine enforcement that go out when available or go out for emergencies. We can get a marine section up at times when they have time to do some extra patrols, and we've done that in the past. But a lot of it is responding to calls or just flying the flag, as we call it, showing people that we're out there, ensuring that they're obeying by all the rules.
Thank you, Director Gettens. Is that, do you have any follow-up?
I'm going to just respond to, if I don't mind, sorry to cut you off. There was a second part of your question through the chair in relation to the encampment at Sage Mesa. Did I cut you off, Ms. Gettens?
Nope, that's the question. Yep, thanks.
Okay, perfect. So we've had the opportunity to exchange a number of correspondence in relation to the current situation out there. As you are aware, in terms of the police response, find committing offenses of littering and or anything like that in relation to contamination of the lake. Those are the things that the police can respond to, check the well-being of those people experiencing homelessness and seeking a refuge at that location, offering them the ability to access the temporary shelter and or get connected in community. That is the appropriate police response. Connecting director with the partners that you've linked me with in relation to a response to the concerns around the garbage. I know I don't need to say this, but that will not fall to the police in relation to the removal of that. However, we continue to be a participant collaborator at the conversation around best strategies for that location. So I know that you were able to determine basically where that area falls under in terms of oversight. And I think it was a provincial area, and the next steps in terms of hiring someone to go in and clean that up, I think was the last conversation that we had. So we encourage people, if there is actively something going on at that location that draws concern, we will respond as appropriate and follow up with them. But we can't post facto respond to litter. You have to be able to prove the offense. And so that's challenging, and it depends on the nature of the offense, whether or not we could even be engaged in terms of a violation. But again, I know it's incredibly frustrating. It's an important to your the people living in your area, Director. And so that's my response to your question through the chair.
Any follow-up, Director Gettins?
Yeah, thank you to the chair, and thank you for that. I appreciate your response. Maybe it's a question for the CAO. Last summer when there was an encampment, and again, it's outside of Area F. It's the last year's one was just on the highway, and this one is as well. What makes it complicated news to me is that if something happens below the high water mark, Moat can no longer take it on, and now it has to also go to Walrus. So you can imagine the complexity of having to deal with Moat and Walrus to try and get somebody to get a freezer out of a lake. So it's a little bit frustrating because it seems like a simple answer, but it isn't. So to the CAO or whoever is best positioned to answer this question, there was a table set up last summer to talk about this. The amount of emails that I've gotten or have had to do and then to get responses back to still not have any action has been a lot for me. So I can imagine for citizens, it'd be incredibly frustrating. And I think the concern is just getting that garbage out of the lake while we can. So my question, CAO, or to the chair, to the CAO, is there a table set up? Is this conversation happening somewhere, and are we included in it? Because I don't ever really feel like I get an update on things like this as a rural director.
So it is difficult. Are we involved? No. I am trying to get a meeting with all the parties involved and try to determine if any of the parties will take responsibility for this, so that there will be an invitation with our CMP will invite you and whoever agency are willing to come. But not these agencies, from what I understand, aren't really taking responsibility. They're pointing the finger to each other and nothing's getting done, but you will be getting an invitation within the next 2 weeks.
Okay, and just really quickly, because I know we're running out of time, a large concern is that with citizens looking for help and for updates, and as we know, and you'll see the drone footage on Facebook posts or social media, and then it'll get pulled down and things get escalated. And as citizens go on asking for help and they get escalated, and then that's when I think there's concerns for both those who are in the encampment and those for citizens as well. They start to take things into their own hands. I get the complexity around humans and the human part of it, and about needing to provide responsible and respectful responses to people who are finding themselves homeless. Getting trash out of our lakes should not be as complicated. And if
Excuse
there's
me, Director Gettins, like really, I'm going to make a motion today, or what do you call it, a notice of motion that actually dealing specifically with that. But again, regards to the RCMP, I think right now we're getting a little bit off of what their responsibility is, and I think we could bring this up a little bit later in the meeting.
Sure,
I have the CAO.
Very quickly, I recognize the issue with this, and we're going to be bringing this up at UBCM. Try to get meetings with ministers and see if they can take on responsibility or point us to the right individuals.
Perfect. Thank you. And I think my mic keeps turning off, but that's good. And yeah, I did not wanting to belittle the issue with Director Gettins. Yes, it's very important, and a lot of us want these things. Next, Superintendent McCandy, you have next up.
Yeah, we'll go to Sergeant Beta for his updates.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you through the chair. Thanks for having us. Rural stats for this quarter are looking really good. It's not a whole lot to talk about the rural stats because most crime in the rural area is down. We do deal with well-being checks in the rural area, and it's more natural in a rural area where your neighbors aren't as close and you may not see someone every day, or places that are vacant for a while that will get calls to check on those places. So that's primarily the type of calls we get. Crime was up in the city itself or town of itself of Osoyoos. Primarily that's stolen vehicles, and for Q1 we did have one party that was moved back to town that was responsible for the majority of those stolen vehicles, and he is currently in custody. Unfortunately, we are still seeing some theft of vehicles throughout the region, and we're working on that steadily. So if anyone has any questions.
Do we have any questions looking for any hands? No, thank you very much.
And over to Corporal Hall for Summerland, please.
Thank you, representatives, through the chair, councillors, for having me today. I'm here to report on the Q1 for Summerland. I'm happy to say that once again, Summerland's enjoying a reduction in just about every aspect of our stats, especially with respect to violent crime. We see a number of reductions varying from 58 to 88% in call volume, in reports. Our calls for service are down from the last comparatively from last quarter, or from Q1 from 2024 as well. What we did see is a bit of a skewed number breaking into businesses, as I reported to Mayor and Council a couple of weeks ago. We did see what would be a 400% in break and enter to businesses. However, this is accounted for by one individual hopping the fence at the landfill and stealing used car batteries. We've identified that individual and have spoken with him and are continuing our investigation into that matter. I'm happy to say that no damage was done to the fence at the landfill when he was doing that. With respect to anything else, we've seen again a reduction in our general stats with total criminal code and Controlled Drugs and Substances Act reduction of about 44%. I'll keep that short and sweet. If there are any questions.
All right. Of course, I just looked down there first. Director Holmes.
Thank you, Corporal. Now, since everybody's here, I'm curious, is breaking into the landfills to steal car batteries a particularly Summerland thing because it happens, or is it widespread? And if it's widespread, like, why don't we just put the car batteries out front and let them take it?
This is actually your suggestion there is something I've had a discussion with the CAO and Works and Infrastructure, where it's something being taken into consideration. To answer the first part of your question, no, it's not unique to Summerland.
Follow up, because it's we gotta, then if it's a big problem, let's deal with it, and let's not keep them in the landfill where they break our everything just to get in. That's the way I think we should maybe work on that together regionally. More of a comment, I guess, but and I, as I said in our council meeting, I just want to thank you, Corporal Hall, for filling in as we wait our new attachment commander. I understand he's on his way, and so really appreciate what you've stepping up in the last months or so.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. We have the CAO.
just let the board know and our CMP, we also have the reverse where we have people dumping batteries at the gate. So, and some of these batteries are not safe. So we're also working with that issue.
All right, Director Barkwell.
Yeah, this question, I mean, I'll bring it up now, but I think it's applicable to any region. I was looking at the number of people, surprisingly large number of people that are victims of fraud. Is that old people, young people, everybody? Are we all stupid, or are we all just being tricked, or what's how are they tricking us, and how much money is involved?
Through the chair, thank you for the question. No, it's a very legitimate question because as we're seeing, and as I've been reporting over the last year, the majority of fraud is that we're experiencing right now as the world becomes more connected by way of internet and phone capabilities and VoIP and all these kind of different technologies that develop. Fraudsters use them to their advantage, and they find the loopholes and whatnot, and target specific individuals who might not be up to speed or as educated with those technologies. It tends to be our senior population, and it tends to be vulnerable sector people, people with disabilities and whatnot. So it's not a matter of are we that, the grand scheme of things, are we that bad here in Summerland or throughout the province of British Columbia? But it is something that as technology advances, people take advantage of that, and then they find the vulnerable sector to take advantage further of. We are continue to provide education and preventative measures in Summerland, holding forums and talks with our community services, our community policing advisors, coming to Summerland and providing anti-fraud talks and speeches and whatnot to educate. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Corporal Hall. I just wanted to comment as well. It's really important as we have people listening to this discussion today that it can happen to anybody. I mean, yes, we typically have an age population that seems to be more of a target. They're retired, enjoying their best lives, and have the time to answer the phone during the day, maybe. Unfortunately, that's what we see, but I don't want to dissuade from anybody calling us. There's no need for you to feel silly. There's no need to feel embarrassed about what happened. Even my own father has been a victim of fraud, and I think he's a particularly intelligent man. It happens to everybody. And so we encourage everybody, if it's suspicious, if you're not sure, just hang up. Or if you unfortunately are defrauded, come to us. We want to try and help navigate. There are also, a National Center for Fraud investigations, and we will do our best to help you recoup or use those strategies. So it is rampant. It's gone up across the province, and nationally we are seeing very sophisticated attempts to defraud people of an enormous amount of money. We have online stuff going on where people's computer systems are being held hostage for ransom. So it is a sign of the times. And so my message overall is please report it. Please engage with us. We'll do our best to help you.
Follow up for Director Barkwell.
That was kind of a smart ass comment by me. It just sort of illustrate that these guys are really clever. And as you mentioned it, it reminded me of somebody, very intelligent person, who didn't believe if it's too good to be true, it's not true. That's the bottom line for many of these things, isn't it? If it's too good to be true, it's not true.
All right, thank you. And
I'll just, if I could move to the next, I'm just not noticing the time and want to be supportive of the group. I also wanted to just acknowledge that I know I'll see Corporal Hall at the next presentation as he works to support our new sergeant coming this summer. And I just want to thank you for the phenomenal job that you've done in leading the detachment in Summerland, all the work and extra work that you've taken on. You've done an exceptional job. I'm very proud of you, and thank you so much. And if I could have Corporal Brown from Karamias.
Chair, Council, Corporal Brown from Karamias Detachment. I'll just keep it short, quick and dirty. As far as our stats go, our violent crime is at its lowest level in 5 years, according to the stats. our property crime is at its lowest level in 5 years. Our violent crime, unfortunately, has gone up, specifically with intimate partner violence. So that's something we're looking to address. As far as the community goes, community involvement with regards to fraud, which was brought up earlier, I have been in discussions with the community policing unit to have a anti-fraud presentation and information seminar for the Keremeos residents. And also participating with area activities in Keremeos. Specifically coming up is the Veterans Wall that's being opened, which we will be attending. And that's about it for Keremeos, just quick and dirty.
Perfect. Any questions for Corporal Brown? Not seeing any. I guess we can thank you very much. Really appreciate what you do.
Over to Sergeant Rock for Oliver.
Yeah, good morning, and thank you for having me, Director. And 3 months now in Oliver, looking at the detachment there. So I'm pretty new down there, and I will say that it's been a great experience. I really appreciate the support from Mayor Johansson, and I can see Erwin there on the TV. So really do appreciate all the support that I've had, and obviously Chief Louis as well. Looking at the stats for Oliver, kind of mirroring some of the stuff that Sergeant Beta said. Obviously down there, we are seeing an increase of theft of vehicles and thefts in general. Traditionally in smaller communities, it's usually 1 or 2 people that are kind of accountable for this. We do have our finger on the pulse, and we are doing some proactive initiatives that I'm hoping that the next time we have this conversation, that the red will no longer be red. So lots of great stuff going on down there. Fraud, again, as all my colleagues have talked about, again, an ongoing battle with that. And education and communication just with our communities is going to be paramount in that. Rural, again, we're looking at intimate partner violence. That's gone up a little bit. Again, in speaking with this, it's statistically, you'll look at it's gone up, but it's just 1 or 2 people that, again, in our communities that we're supporting to. Again, looking at our agencies within the communities, supporting with victim services, and looking at outlining like addictions and substances along with that as well. Obviously, my initiative for the next little bit here in the community of Oliver is just kind of getting to know it. I know there's lots of great community events coming up, just trying to do a lot of proactive community events. I know the Sunshine Festival is coming up, so we're going to be engaged with our local partners with that. You're going to see more presence, looking at the UTV, foot patrols, just a little bit more visibility there. I've done lots of engagement with the school districts. We've got lots of positive school talks. I too have been engaged with the Interior Health just to kind of look at connections, kind of what they're mirroring in Penticton on a lower level, but how do we support our communities dealing with substance use and a lot of the dementia individuals going on there. So again, I appreciate again all the support, and hopefully continue to do some positive stuff in the community.
Thank you. Any questions? Not seeing any. Thank you very much for that report.
I'd just like to say, Sergeant Rock, 3 months in, and the work that's been done in the building inside, it looks like it's been remodeled, I'm told, and just really moving along some updates that, okay, it's horrible, it's leaking, no. Just demonstrates that you roll up your sleeves and you get right to it, and really just ran out of the gates and just, in my humble words, killing it. So thanks very much, Lori, for all that you're doing. And over to Sergeant Potter.
Sergeant Potter at Princeton. Quickly going over the stats here. The total numbers for violent crime compared to last year are pretty similar. We could see the spikes for assaults. Went over all the assault files. They're not all major assaults, like most are pretty minor. We've had several files with charges on them. Usually people we know, but it's not like all the assault files are pretty singled out. It's not like the same person assaulting people all the time. But it did bring the numbers up a little bit. Property crime was up, as I've discussed previously with Director Coyne. Again, especially thefts. Shoplifting, not so much an issue, because I think all the files are at the grocery store and they hire an LPO there. And I think his his objective, I don't think there's more than before, but he likes to call on us to know who he's dealing with, which I think is also a good practice. So that sort of brought the number of shoplifting files up a little bit. Thefts have been up. A lot of them we can't necessarily connect to an individual, but we did make some arrests in town with some pretty big conditions of not being in Princeton anymore, and I'm pretty confident that that's going to help with that situation. That's about it for stats. Crime reduction strategies. Well, we work with a local probation officer, which is a great partner here, conducting regular curfew checks on our clients. Not so much to make sure they're getting good sleep, but also to make sure they're home and preventing other stuff, because there's sometimes they're up to no good. So that really helps with crime prevention. We have focus patrol and proactive work. We arrested 2 different repeat offenders for Q1, and one was on the run for several months. So we were pretty happy about that. They've been quiet ever since, but probably not forever. But it's been good for the rest of the following quarter. Known offenders, problem houses, and all that. We make sure we also pass on the information. As you all know, we have a lot of overtime member coverage, so we pass on that information for consistency, and they're doing a great job to make sure we don't have any gaps there. Police visibility. We had a fraud presentation at this Princeton Senior Home in January, just to sort of wrap up the fraud thing. We don't have huge numbers for fraud, but it's still great to have these presentations. We had a member participate in a community event with family services for young children, and another presentation on online safety, accompanied with the grade 8 teacher at the PSS school. And we have more in the queue for that for next quarter. We have a new member train on radar and traffic, which really helps with our visibility. We tried to train as soon as we can every new member that comes in to have more presence there. Hopefully more visibility was noticed on Highway 3. We had a bit more presence on Copper Mountain Road again, because I have regular communications with mine management there, and apparently there was a lot more traffic up and down that road, more employees maybe are hiring. So we monitored that. And yeah, Highway 3, and we have more. We'll start spreading out, try to fill the gap between us and BCHP. They're doing a great job, but they're stat based, but that doesn't mean that's where all the problems are. So we'll try to cover and fill that gap with Highway 5 and Princeton Summerland Road and all that. That's all I got. Any questions for Princeton?
All right, Director Coyne.
Yeah, more of a comment than anything. I want to say thank you. I know there's a lot of rhetoric on the internet right now at home about, crimes running rampant and that. So I just threw all the stats into a spreadsheet and figured it out. And really, we're pretty flat since 2020. So I think a big kudos to you guys, because it's always, we know who it is, right? Almost every time we know who it is. So, yeah, no, good job. When you guys, last time we talked about Highway 5A, you guys showed some presence and it fixed that problem pretty fast and whatnot. So thank you for that. Going in the summer, I know we only go so far, and it's Penticton, I think, rural, that does the rest of Princeton Summerland Road. If we can come up with some strategy to slow some of the people, I have to drive that every day. There's 18 even now before the 20K mark. So just to slow some of those people down and get them off the road and whatnot, moving into summer so we don't have accidents.
Yep, definitely. Princeton Summerland Road and Old Delhi Road are in the scope. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other questions? Comments? Again, Headley really is noticing, the presence, and different people have turned up at pancake breakfasts, and that gets them all, really excited about having that interaction. Again, I have people wanting to have coffee with a cop, and I think if we kind of do it a little bit more often, it won't be a firing line like it was last time. But I think just in regards to day-to-day conversations, people are becoming aware. The concerns are more around the highway issue, which, everybody is aware of the corner there. That's going well. And to follow up on Director's Coyne in regards to the event happening up above where they are at, I'm not sure how big it will be, but looks like it's going to be a regular event, Rock the Similkameen, which is just outside of Headley. So just making sure that we're aware and seeing what that may bring, because it looks like it's the start of an ongoing annual event.
Okay, Rock the Similkameen happened last year. It was the first time I heard
Yes.
about it. And we got called prior, which was great. I think some of the organizers, if not all, are with the USIB. We sent members there that day, and we were very well received, and everybody was appreciative, and there were really no issues there. So I don't anticipate any issues this year, but we'll definitely make sure we have that presence and we monitor.
Perfect. Thank you. And thank you for all you do.
And just before we conclude the presentation today, I just wanted to just share that after this, we're doing an emergency tabletop exercise back at the detachment as we enter into the summer season, and we have lots of new faces in our areas. You're familiar with your regional commanders, but we have lots of new staff and employees, and we want to just make sure we are where we need to be for responses, how we engage with our partners, our EOCs and directors. And so I know everybody is looking forward to the summer, as are we. Please, communication is key. If there's a shortcoming in any way, shape, or form, please reach out to us. You know, there's all of the additional pressures that we're probably going to see with influx of tourism, as we know that maybe some people are not going to be now going to the US. We're going to be seeing those people spend their dollars in our communities. And, you know, so the communication is key. Patience, collaboration, planning as best as we can, and knowing that you can plan for everything and it might not matter. We might just have to go as it is, but we have a team of well-trained officers. Like I said, we're going to go do this housekeeping exercise. And I know Jay just wants to close with one thing for all of the Soyuz, but we appreciate your time. We appreciate the communication and the leadership that you give to your communities and areas that you represent, and we're happy to be a part of that. So thank you. Through the chair.
Through the chair, sorry, I'll keep this really short. I wanted to keep my presentation short, but I actually forgot to mention something I was going to say until Lori started talking, Sergeant Rock started talking. I think it's really important. I think Mayor Johansson and Council probably already recognize the good work that Sergeant Rock is doing, but I personally have been able to work with her because our communities are so close and we deal with a lot of the same clientele. So I just really want to stress the fact she's doing an amazing job. She's reaching out to me, I'm reaching out to her. We're starting to work some projects together. So if councils of either Oliver or Soyuz have something that's happening in their community that maybe you know, affecting both communities or something in our rural areas, please reach out to one of us, and we've got a really good working relationship, and I think we can get some good things done in the area. So.
See what I did?
Well,
get that vote too.
Well, thank you very much. If there's nothing else, Superintendent McKenney, I'd just like to say, well, again, we really appreciate all that you've been doing and the communication and the work of the whole team. It is very noticeable and very much appreciated. And again, we're looking forward to a real successful and wonderful summer. Thank you. So for protective services, I don't see anything else on our agenda. So could I have a motion to adjourn protective services? Second. Thank you. All in favor? Thank you. Over to you, Chair.
Thanks, Director Roberts. We'll just give folks a moment to make their way out, and we'll get started shortly. Okay, we'll call the Regional District Okanagan-Similkameen Regular Board meeting to order. A couple of things here. Items E1 and the closed session are likely to be removed here today. And this is an opportunity to take anything off the consent agenda to discuss in the regular portion of the meeting. If there's something in there that you want to highlight. Not seeing any of that, so looking for a motion to approve the agenda as amended. Moved, seconded, thank you. All in favor? Great. Any opposed? Motion carries. That brings us to the consent agenda. Looking for a motion on that. A mover, thank you. Seconded, thanks. All in favor? Great. Any opposed? That's carried. That brings us over to development services. Agricultural Land Commission referral in Area D, CAO.
Thank you, Chair. An application has been submitted to the Agricultural Land Commission under Section 21.2 of the Agricultural Commission Act and referred to the regional district in order to permit a subdivision to occur within the ALR area. And the recommended staff motion is that the RDOS board not authorize the application to subdivide the parcel lot at 3841 Allendale Lake Road to proceed to the Agricultural Land Commission. Staff is here to answer any questions.
I'll go to Director Taylor. Direction on this one.
Yeah, I'd actually like to refer this to the APC.
Okay, so you're moving, sending it to the APC. Is there a seconder for that? It's on the floor. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? Motion carries. B2, Agricultural Land Commission referral in Area F, CAO.
And thank you. An application has been submitted to the ALC under Section 21.2 of the Agricultural Land Commission and referred to the regional district in order to permit a subdivision to occur within the ALR area. And the recommended motion is that the RDOS board authorize the application to subdivide the parcel located at 860 Meadow Valley Road and 810 Meadow Valley Road and the property legally described as lot 3696 to proceed to the ALR Commission. And there's no PowerPoint, but staff's here to answer your question.
Okay, I'll go to Director Gettens. Direction on this.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I'll move the recommendation. Thanks.
Mover seconded. It's on the floor. Any discussion? Seeing no hands, all those in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? Motion carries. B3, Agricultural Land Commission referral in Area I, CAO.
An application has been submitted to the ALC under Section 34.3.2A of the ALR regulation and referred to the regional district in order to retain existing residential dwelling for a total floor area of 90 square meters on parcel of land on the ALR. And the recommended motion is that the RDOS board authorize the application for a non-adhering residential use additional residence at 185 Pine View Road, Kaleden, to proceed to ALR. Staff again is here to answer questions.
I'll go to Director Monteith. Direction.
Thank you. Thank you, through the chair. I actually have some questions for staff on this application. So the administrative recommendation is kind of confusing. So it's to authorize an application for non-adhering residential use. But then it goes on to say additional residence for farm use, but the building has already been built. So how is it there? And they're asking, like, it just seems confusing.
Staff?
So through the chair, so it's our understanding that the applicant availed themselves of the zoning regulation that we have that allows for an existing dwelling to be retained while a new house is constructed. And at the time the new house is constructed, they've committed to decommission. So the new house has been completed, but my understanding is the property owner has had a change of heart and is now wishing to retain the existing dwelling unit. That dwelling unit complies with our zoning regs, but it's not compliant with ALC regs. ALC refers to these as non-adhering residential use applications. So that's why they submitted this particular application.
Okay, go ahead, Director Monteith.
Thank you. Just to follow up, so if the ALC were to give permission for this residence to remain, it would indeed be able to be rented as a secondary dwelling on the property. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, hearing that, I'd like to make the administrative recommendation, please.
Okay, you're moving it. It's seconded. It's on the floor. Any further discussion? Again, seeing no hands, we'll call the question. All those in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? Motion carries. B4, development variance in Area F, CAO.
And thank you. This application is seeking a variance to the interior side parcel line setback that applies to the subject property in order to formalize an existing livestock shelter, which is a chicken coop. And the administrative recommendation is that development variance permit F 2025.002 allow for the construction of a livestock shelter at 601 Valiant Drive be approved. Staff's here to answer questions.
Now, again, I'll go to Director Gettens. Direction.
Thanks, Chair. I'll move it in an alternate recommendation to have this go to the APC for Area F, please.
Okay, sending it to the APC. It's seconded. Any discussion? Again, seeing no hands, call the question. All in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? Motion carries. Over to B5, another developments variance, this time in Area I, CAO.
Thank you again. This application is seeking variance to the front parcel line setback that applies to the subject property in order to undertake the construction of an accessory dwelling. The recommended motion is that the development variance permit I 2025.009 to allow for the construction of an accessory building at 529 Oak Avenue, Glidden, be approved. Staff's here to answer questions.
Okay, over to Director Monteith.
Thank you. Just be patient with me for 1 second. I'm just loading the representations. I don't believe the representations are complete. Is that all the representations that staff have received?
Staff?
We believe so.
It's all the ones that they seem to be aware of. Anything further, Director Monteith, or direction on this?
Yeah, I think I'm going to move the administrative recommendation.
Okay, so you're moving it. Is there a seconder? It's on the floor. Any discussion? Seeing no hands, this one is a rural vote. All those in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? Motion carries. Down to B6, a temporary use permit in Area C, CAO.
Thank you. The purpose of this report is to seek direction from the Regional District Board regarding the request for the applicant for a 6-month extension until December 5th, 2025, with the recommendation being that the 6-month extension until December 5th, 2025 of temporary use permit C 2022.022 at 380 Wilson Mountain Road be approved.
Okay, over to Director Chahal. Direction on this?
Yeah, thank you. Through the chair, I would like to move the administrative recommendation.
Okay, moving, seconded. It's on the floor. Any discussion? Again, seeing no hands. This one is again rural. All those in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? Motion carries. B7, a zoning bylaw amendment in Area C, CAO.
This application is seeking to amend the zoning of the subject property in order to allow the construction of an agritourism accommodation, with the recommendation being that the Okanagan Valley Zoning Amendment Bylaw 2800.54/2025 be read a first, second time and proceed to public hearing, and that the holding of a public hearing be scheduled for the Regional District Board meeting of June 19th, 2025, and that staff give notice of the public hearing in accordance with the requirement of the Local Government Act. And again, staff's here to answer questions.
Again, Director Chahal.
Yeah, thank you. Through the chair, I would like to move the administrative recommendation.
Okay, it's moved and seconded. Any discussion on this one? Again, seeing no hands, rural vote. All those in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? Motion carries. B8, official community plan and zoning bylaw amendments in Area D, Heritage Hills, Lakeshore Highlands, and Vintage Views. I think that was the subject of this morning's public hearings. CAO.
It is being proposed to amend Electoral Area D official community plan bylaw and Okanagan Valley zoning bylaw 2800/2022 in order to facilitate a formal extension granted by the province to the regional district in relation to the statutory requirement for small scale multi-unit housing. And the staff recommendation is that the Electoral Area D official community plan amendment bylaw 2603.27/2025 and the Okanagan Valley zoning amendment bylaw 2800.43/2025 be read a third time and adopted.
Over to Director Taylor. Direction on this.
Yeah, I see this as a temporary move to buy time to get sewer and water systems in place, at which time there will be a further zoning change. So I will move the administrative recommendations.
Moved, seconded, thank you. Any discussion, Director Federico?
Thank you, to the chair. I have a quick question. So in these communities, is my understanding is that currently some of the parcels can't build because of where the systems are at. So does that still stay in place with these changes? And then do a couple or points this morning out of the concern of the public hearing. If someone was to build a new home with the intention of putting in that secondary suite, which they can't do now, but they could do down the road, to save on costs, they're going to want to put that in during the building period. So how then are those wanting to build with a secondary suite limited at the moment?
Over to staff.
Through the chair. So for the first question, yes, there is that provincial pollution prevention order that does apply to parcels within the Vintage Views wastewater system service area. Putting in this zoning would not affect that. It is a provincial order and would remain in place until all the necessary upgrades that are required are undertaken, until, yeah, that can be lifted by the province. So that does remain in place despite the zoning. With respect to secondary suites in future builds, yes, it's understandable that you would want to build in that space at the time in which you're building a single detached dwelling. So if the zoning does permit you to build that single detached dwelling, and you do wish to put a secondary suite into it in the future, the zoning amendments would they would restrict you from putting in the suite currently, because you would not be able to have a secondary suite on those parcels. However, that doesn't necessarily stop you from, having a basement, right? And that could potentially be converted in the future when secondary suites do become legalized by a change in zoning. So at that point that it becomes permitted by zoning, that property owner could come in with a building permit application to convert that area into a secondary suite.
Okay. Anything further? Oh, Director Holmes.
I'm just wondering if this is intended to be a temporary solution. I wonder if an additional motion, and keeping in mind that when the solution is when it's all resolved, it'll be a new board. I don't think it'll be done in the next year or two. I'd be pretty optimistic if it did, but if it might be useful to have an additional resolution to bring this back to the board for consideration once the upgrades have been completed.
I'll go to staff, but I think that's kind of implied in here, but correct me if I'm wrong.
No, yeah, so through the chair, that is correct. Further to Mr. Wong's comments, all I would add is that, of course, this is being raised in relation to the compliance with small-scale multi-unit housing, and that the province has given us an extension to statutory requirements to 2030. So, unless the province gives us a further extension in the event that the water and sewer haven't been resolved at that point, we have a statutory obligation to allow for 2 units per parcel under the Local Government Act. So I'm not, because of that other legislative requirement, I'm not sure if necessarily another resolution from the board is required, and if the board can fetter a future board in that way anyway. But we do have a requirement to review it in 4 years at this point. So.
Okay, I've got Director Roberts and then over to Director Coyne.
Thank you. As a follow-up to Director Federico's question, if you do a build prior, and we're talking about a secondary suite, it's one thing to have a basement, but you're going to want through, permitting in that to have power, gas, plumbing available. So is there a point where all of a sudden you say it's unfinished? Like, for instance, there's already a set for a toilet to be there. There's the plumbing, the main line. Yes, they can attach and do everything else, but people are going to need to be able to, if they're building between this period of time a house, they're going to need to have the infrastructure kind of in place. So is there a way that they would be able to, trigger or have somebody look at it and say, okay, it's this there? And I understand it's, a bit of a challenge, but I just saying a basement, they're not going to chip up the concrete and digging the water that's going to have to be already done and in place. So anyways, that's kind of my question. Thank you.
Staff?
Chair, to answer the director's question. So right now there is no ability to pull a building permit because of the provincial order. So staff's intent is 100% now that we know these systems are coming to the RDOS, once we're approaching completion of the necessary infrastructure upgrades, we will come back with the revisions to the zoning and make sure that people have the ability, basically roll back what we're doing today. So engineering will be working closely with planning to make sure that that timing works as best as possible. As Director Holmes mentioned, though, I would caution that, this isn't something that's going to be done in a year or two, and we're going to work with our communications team to get messaging out just so that the residents understand, like, a new sewer system doesn't get built in a year. So it will take some time. Of course, it's a priority for us, but hopefully that helps address that concern.
Okay. Director Coyne and then Director Monteith.
I mean, further to that and what Director Holmes were talking about, we see all time and time again where things kind of just get lost in the shuffle. Some guarantee that this will come back in a timely manner is, I think, I think the residents deserve that. So I don't know if that's a motion like Director Holmes was suggesting, or something that's staff put into a timeline that this is when we'll bring this forward. I don't want to see this turn into like a 10-year project or something, because there's no capacity. It's not fair to the residents. I don't think that was the expectation when they voted for this. So I would like to see some sort of guarantee that this will come back in a timely manner.
Okay. Response to that from staff?
Yeah, Chair. I mean, from my perspective, I would just comment again, similar to Mr. Garrish. I don't think we need an additional motion to that. We completely understand and appreciate the challenge in particular, the property owners that own a parcel and they've never been able to build on, and they've been waiting for years. So we really appreciate the challenge for them and the importance of this. I only threw out that caution because to do these upgrades feasibly and appropriately, it does take time, but absolutely it's a priority for us and it will remain a priority.
And it has to come back, or we need to reapply for an extension in 2030.
Correct. Ultimately, we have that provincial deadline, and hopefully we'll be able to complete upgrades prior to that. But ultimately, we also do have that deadline as well.
Okay, Director Monteith.
Thank you, through the chair. Director Holmes and Director Coyne kind of touched on what I was thinking, and I agree that often things take forever to come back for revisiting them. So I guess I agree. I'm looking for some surety for those property owners. So is it possible to add the intent into the bylaw so that residents do understand the intent is to review it, to lift this restriction once the infrastructure is in place?
Then I'll go to staff.
Through the chair. So the OCP amendment bylaw actually includes a proposal to include a new policy statement within those two small holdings and low density residential land use designations that speaks to actually supporting the board coming back and reviewing accessory residential dwelling unit allowances at such a time that those infrastructure systems are completed.
Okay. Does that address people's concerns? Director Taylor?
Yeah, this is challenging. And unfortunately, I don't see a simple solution or a fast solution. I've had these discussions with staff myself. I'm glad the directors have asked all these questions and staff have given the same answers that I've been getting over the last month. It's certainly not the situation I'd like, but I don't see a better alternative. And from what I see from the province on the SHMU stuff, I think we're going to be hard pressed to get a further extension. certainly not a 5-year extension. So I think the biggest thorn in our side to revert back to the existing scenario is going to be the province. I think they're going to be telling us pretty damn quick that we don't have any time. So.
Okay. Director Holmes?
Yeah, I don't think we need to change the bylaw at all. And I understand from staff, okay, if once the upgrades are made and everything, we would then be not out of compliance with provincial legislation. So it would have to be brought back to us anyways to change. I get that. I was just thinking, bringing a resolution for them to bring them back. So it's in the resolution tracker. That's, so it's there, for the next board, when they're looking at the outstanding resolutions. Can't hurt, but I understand from staff that would have to happen anyway. So I'm kind of agnostic on it.
Right, Director Coyne?
Yeah, just not to belabor this, but is this going to be done in-house, or are we putting this out to contract? Because this is going to have a big bearing on how I make my decision.
Staff?
Chair, to answer the director's question, it'd be contracted out, and it'd be a combination of in-house working with consultants.
So are we going to do the ditch work, or are we going to have somebody come and do that stuff for us?
We don't have the capability to do the actual construction. When I say combination of in-house and consultant, of course, our engineering team would work with an engineering consultant to develop the plans, the design, and then of course that ultimately the work would be tendered for a contractor to do the actual construction.
And then last question is, that would be set at this rate, not like some of our other contracts where they come back at out to lunch, right?
Yeah, ultimately, as a local government, of course, we have to have a public process, and the public process would ensure competitive bidding process. And ultimately, we would work to plan the timing to release that at a strategic time where we can get the most competitive bidding, and so on and so forth. Of course, we're here to serve the residents, and part of that is ensuring that we're getting the best pricing that's possible, or putting ourselves in a good position to, at least.
Yeah.
Okay. Director Federico, then I think we should move on.
Yep, thank you, through the chair. There was one gentleman this morning that mentioned that he's on water, but he's got his own septic. So, and I don't know the area kind of well enough. So in that situation, are there some residents who parcel dependent then could still have a secondary suite if they're just on water and septic, provided we're following OBWB guidelines, or will this zoning then impact them as well?
Over to staff.
Through the chair, this would prohibit secondary suites in all the zones in that area.
Okay. Director Monteith, I see a hand, I believe.
Yeah, thank you, through the chair. Does that mean that current secondary suites would then become non-compliant?
Staff?
Through the chair, yes, so any secondary suites that would have been legally constructed with all authorizations required at the time would be considered non-conforming upon the adoption of this bylaw.
So in short,
Sorry,
they're grandfathered?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Last question, Director Federico.
Yes, sorry, one quick question then. So why was this zoning change not just for the wastewater infrastructure? And then why is this going to both systems?
Staff?
As I understand it, there's deficiencies in both the water and the sewer systems in that area. So it was at the direction of the board to expand the proposed amendments to the lands that are serviced by both the water system as well as the sewer system.
Okay. Call the question on this one. It is a rural vote. So all those in favor? All right, those opposed? We have Directors Roberts and Federico opposed. Oh, and Director Monteith, and the motion would still carry. Oh, and Coin too. Getting closer. It's 4 opposed. Director Chahal, I think, voted in favor. No? Director Chahal, had you clarified which way you were voting?
I'm not in favor.
Not in favor? Okay. That would mean the motion is defeated. CAO, should we leave it as is or make an alternative motion?
I'd recommend an alternative motion. I sense that there's concern, and what I would recommend is that the staff be directed to come up with yearly updates, so it's in the tracker, so that at the board of the day can actually have an update and make some changes at that time. So if it could just change it slightly where that the staff be directed to bring back yearly updates on this bylaw.
I believe we're left in a position of non-compliance too.
Tracy?
Yeah. But that's going to have to be dealt with at a later date.
Can I just make a point?
Director Coyne?
So we just defeated this bylaw was just defeated, right?
Yes.
So it goes back to square one. It doesn't come back right now. You can't make an alternate motion on something that was just defeated. So this is dead. So now you have to start over.
Direction is what I was meaning. And
I just want to make sure everybody understands that it's dead.
Director Federico?
Thank you to the chair. Can we ask staff to bring this back to the Planning and Development Committee so we can have kind of discussion around where some of our concerns were with the, I don't know what Lisa's department's now called, but have them who's overseeing the infrastructure. Because like, I value and see the merit in this, and yes, between compliance, but there also, I think in some areas has to be that balance where if we're limiting everybody, then just kind of a broader or a dive into sort of why. That's where my kind of stop point is for this. So if it can come back to committee for further discussion, that's what I don't know if I can make a motion to bring it back to committee to talk about it since we defeated it.
Go to our CO.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just for clarification for the board, because this was third and adoption was defeated, it means that this bylaw is still sitting at second reading. So until the board rescinds those readings and abandons the bylaw is still at second reading.
Okay. We'll leave it at that for the time being. And I think we do probably need to have a further discussion on this at a Planning and Development Committee meeting. Over to B9, Official Community Plan and Zoning Bylaw Amendment in Area E, CAO.
Thank you. It is being proposed to amend the zoning of the subject property in order to facilitate the development of a fire and rescue training facility and to further bring the subject property as well as the adjacent Naramata Fire Hall property into Naramata Community Water and Street Lighting Service areas. And the staff recommendation is that Electoral Area E Official Community Plan Amendment Bylaw 3010.03/2025 and the Okanagan Valley Zoning Amendment Bylaw 2800.52/2025 be read a first and second time, and that the Board of Directors consider the process as outlined in this report from the Chief Administrative Officer dated June 5th, 2025 to be appropriate consultation for the purpose of Section 475 of the Local Government Act, and that in accordance with Section 477 of the Local Government Act, the Board of Directors has considered Amendment Bylaw 3010.03/2025 in conjunction with its financial and applicable waste management plan, and the Electoral Area E Official Community Plan Amendment Bylaw 3010.03/2025 and Okanagan Valley Zoning Bylaw 2800.52/2025 proceed to public hearing, and that the holding of a public hearing be scheduled for the Regional District Board meeting of June 19th, 2025, and that staff give notice of the public hearing in accordance with the requirement of the Local Government Act, and that the Naramata Water System Local Services Establishment Bylaw 3108 and 2025 and Naramata Lighting Local Service Establishment Bylaw 1618.03/2025 be read a first and second time. There is no PowerPoint presentation, but staff is here to answer your questions.
Okay, I would just note that these need to be split for two separate votes, but I'll go to Director Federico.
Thank you, the chair. I'll move the first one and then I have a comment on the second one.
Okay, so moving it, seconded. It's on the floor. Any discussion? Not seeing any hands, so we'll call the question on that. The first one is a rural vote. All those in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? That motion carries. And we'll go to the second portion of that. Director Federico, are you prepared to move it or you want to ask a question first?
Can I ask a question first?
Go ahead.
Thank you, through the chair. Why do we need to be included in these? So I have seen that parcel and a few others are kind of awkwardly not included in our water system area, but they won't be putting any water infrastructure to that parcel, other than I guess the ruling around not taking water from one parcel to the other. So just some clarification, and then why the street lighting if they won't be putting street lights on there either.
Staff?
Sorry, so through the chair. So it's just considered good practice from staff's perspective that when somebody's receiving a service, that they're in the service area. And in looking at this rezoning application, when the fire training facility came in, we noticed that the existing firehouse site is being serviced from Naramata community water system, but it's not technically within the service area. It's just a general practice that we were, encourage amongst private property owners. And also when we do amendments to the water service area, we generally try to make sure that the street lighting service area is synced up with it, so the boundaries are the same. So that's kind of the background context for this one.
Okay, Director Federico, direction?
Yep, then I will move the staff administrative recommendation, please.
Moved and seconded. It's on the floor. Discussion. Corporate vote. All those in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? That motion carries. B10, Official Community Plan and Zoning Bylaw Amendment in Area H, CAO.
Thank you. This application is seeking to amend the zoning of the approximately 0.164 hectare portion of the subject property in order to allow a two-lot subdivision in the form of a lot line adjustment between 2531 and 2567 Colmont Road, which will be transferred the approximately 0.164 hectare portion of 2531 Colmont Road to 2567 Colmont Road, with the staff recommendation being that the electoral area H official community amendment plan bylaw 2497.17 2025 and the electoral H zoning amendment bylaw 3065.01 2025 be read a first and second time and proceed to public hearing, and that the board of directors consider the process as outlined in this report from the chief administrative officer dated June 5th, 2025 to be a appropriate consultation for the purpose of section 475 of the Local Government Act, and in accordance with section 477 of the Local Government Act, the board of directors has considered amendment bylaw 2497.17 2025 in conjunction with its financial and applicable waste management plan, and that holding of public hearing be scheduled for the regional district meeting of June 19th, 2025, and that the staff give notice of the public hearing in accordance with the requirement of the Local Government Act. Again, no PowerPoint presentation, but staff's here to answer questions.
Okay, and I'll go to Director Coyne. Direction on this? I couldn't hear that. I'm not sure if your mute was on, but
I'd make the administrator recommendation, please.
I think from your lip reading, it will be saying you wanted to move the administrative recommendation. All right. Thank you for that. A seconder, it's on the floor. Any discussion on this? Seeing none, we'll call the question, and this one is again a rural vote. All those in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? Motion carries. B11, petition to amend the service area in Area D, CAO.
Thank you. The applicant has submitted a petition request to the regional district that seeks to remove the property at 112 Bighorn Trail, District Lot 2710 in the Vintage Views wastewater system service area, with the recommended motion being that the Vintage Views wastewater system service establishment bylaw 3068.01 2025 being a bylaw to reduce the service area be adopted. And again, staff's here. No PowerPoint presentation, but here to answer questions.
Director Taylor, direction.
I'll move the administrative recommendation.
Moved, seconded, thank you. Any discussion? Seeing no hands, I'll call the question. And again, oh, this one is a corporate vote. All those in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? Motion carries. Down to Board of Variance, B12, CAO.
The purpose of this report is to recommend appointment to the Regional District Board of Variance, and the staff recommendation is that Margaret, Chatsy, David, Corbell, and Jim Dinwoody be appointed to the Board of Variance for a 3-year term.
Okay. Direction on this. Director McCordoff?
I will make that staff recommendation.
Okay, moved, seconded, it's on the floor. Any discussion on this? Go ahead.
Mr. Chair, this is a rural vote.
A rural? Okay. So we need a different mover. Moved, seconded, it's on now on the floor officially. Which brings up the question, why would this be a rural vote when we're appointing a Board of Variance? I'm curious on that.
I believe that when I was reviewing this, I looked at it from the point of view that the Board of Variance is a requirement of the zoning bylaw, and that being a rural.
Sure. Fair enough. Any discussion on this? Director Gettins, is that a hand from you?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Thanks to the chair. I'm just curious how often the Board of Variance have been used in the last few years, if there's just any stats or information around it.
Not very often, but I'll go to staff for a better description of their use.
Well, yeah, so through the chair, I don't have stats at my fingertips, but I tend to agree. It'd be very easy for us to pull those together because I don't think they meet more than once or twice a year. And, you know, usually it's in relation to hardship claims in the context of a zoning requirement that they can't be met. But yeah, it is very infrequent, but we can certainly pull some stats together if needed.
Okay, does that answer your question, Director Gettins?
Yeah, no, that's fine. Thank you. I just, yeah, I haven't had a lot of experience with them either, but I did once, and I just wanted to say that I thought they were just such a very professional group and really have a hard job to not go very often and do this work very often. So I just wanted to acknowledge that. And if it's the same group that we had before, that they are, yeah, they did a really good job.
Okay, I believe it is the same group. So thanks for that. Anything further? Call the question, rural vote. All those in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? That motion carries. That brings us down to protective services. C1, letter to the Minister of Transports and Transit regarding improving the response of road contractors for traffic control at emergencies. CAO.
Thank you. The purpose is to request a letter to be written to the Minister of Transportation and Transit to enforce the need for road contractors to respond within the first 2 hours of the incident being reported to provide traffic control to an emergency incident scene on the highway and rural roadways, with the recommendation that the board authorize the chair to send a letter to the Minister of Transportation and Transit regarding improving responses for road contractors for traffic control and emergency incidents, and staff's here to answer any questions and concerns.
Director Coyne?
I'll happily make this motion.
Moving it. There's a seconder. It's on the floor. Discussion. Director Fedrigo and then Monty.
Thank you through the chair. Do we have plans to bring this to UBCM to have a conversation in person with other staff or ministry?
Through
Go
the
ahead, staff.
Yeah, through the chair. Yes, absolutely. We'll be bringing that.
Director Monteith, you have a hand up?
Yes, thank you. Through the chair, I greatly appreciate this letter coming forward. I know I've heard from my fire chief that it's been an ongoing concern, so I appreciate this approach.
Okay. Any other discussion on this, Director Coyne?
Just if we are going to go to UBCM with this as well, I think a letter of support from every member municipality and every fire department, whether it's a regional district or municipal fire department, if possible, would be super helpful in making our point, because as we all know, our fire departments are doing all the traffic control, and well, AIM doesn't show up. So.
Until way late. Okay. Call the question on this. All those in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? Motion carries. Was that a late hand, Director Gettens, or was that opposed?
I'm in
Okay.
favor.
All right, thank you. C2, approval for Farm Credit Canada grant application, CAO.
Thank you. The Naramata Fire Department would like to apply for the Farm Credit Canada grant to purchase new hose that meet the BC Wildfire Service certification for a wildfire response. And the staff recommendation is that the board approve the Naramata Fire Department to apply for a $10,000 grant from the Farm Credit Canada grant. And staff's here to answer questions.
Director Federico.
I'd like to move that, please.
And it's seconded. Any discussion on this? Director Taylor?
In the past, has RDOS not gone for grants for multiple services? And are there other volunteer departments that could benefit from this same grant?
Over to staff.
Through the chair, this is an ongoing grant that fire departments can apply to at any time. So it's not, there's no deadline for this grant. So if they have a need, and we are actually going to be having a significant discussion in our next meeting for the fire chiefs, talking about all the grants that they are able to apply for and see how we can support them in doing that.
Okay, follow up, Director Taylor.
Yeah, I guess I'm just wondering if RDOS is submitting this application on behalf of one department now, is there benefit in going in for more departments at the same time rather than waiting and coming in a second time?
I'll go to the CAO.
So as stated, the other departments will be asked if they want to apply. However, Naramata was on the ball and they were the first ones to. It doesn't matter when we apply for it. There is some work involved in the application, and there's monthly meetings now with all the fire chiefs. And at that point, the chiefs can decide if to apply. I would prefer, it's more, I think, efficient if we come with one request, and it will be coming back, and more than likely there'll be more than one request in the very near future.
Okay. Anything further? We'll call the question. All those in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? Motion carries. Fire marquee bylaw contract, CAO.
Thank you. I'm very happy that this is coming to the board right now. And bylaw number 3110/2025 being the bylaw to authorize cost recovery fees with respect to the fire department. Specific response will allow the regional district to collect funds from insurance policies that cover the cost of fire response, with the recommended motions being the regional district of Okanagan-Similkameen Fire Department response cost recovery bylaw 3010/2025 being a bylaw to authorize cost recovery with respect to the fire department. Specific response be read a first, second, and third time and be adopted. And that bylaw 3097.01/2025 being a bylaw to amend the regional district of Okanagan-Similkameen fees and charges bylaw to include fees for fire department response cost recovery be read a first, second, and third time and be adopted. And that the board authorize the chief administrative officer to enter into an agreement with Fire Marquee for the purpose of filling out on behalf of the regional district all claims with insurances to recover any insurance on behalf of the regional district, any proceeds for insurance which are recoverable in accordance with the terms of any insurance policies of the owner, of the tenant, of the incident site. So this is something that other areas in Canada have been successfully implementing, and it allows, there's expenses when you go to a fire, that the more fires there are, the higher the cost of the fire departments be over budget. And this is a way to recover, not from the owner, but from the insurance company of that property. And staff's here to answer any questions you may have.
Dr. Coyne and then Robert.
I will be more than happy to make this motion, and I'll also ask the CAO to bring this up in the CAO group because I've been trying to get this in my community for about 4 years.
Okay, the first part, because there's 3 parts to this. The voting structure is slightly different, so it's got to be 3 separate motions. And it's seconded. Any discussion on the first part? Director Taylor?
I'm not sure where this comes in, and generally it makes great sense to me, but is there any negative impact on a homeowner in the event they're not insured?
Go to staff.
Through the chair, no, there is not. If there is no insurance, there's no claim made. Yeah.
Did you had something to add, CAO, or?
This is something that I had previously tried to go through the province, and that this would only apply where there's fires in houses. There's every one of us in our community that has a house and is insured is paying for these fire departments. And it's something that we need to go back to the province. I was very unsuccessful in previous UBCMs when I was working in another municipality, and having the province dictate to the insurance companies that the money that they're collecting on behalf of the fire departments go back to the fire departments, not keep them in their road repair, whatever they could use it for anything else. So this is just a start. I would love to have it where it's province-wide. It affects more for the municipalities because they've got a lot more assessments and properties. But for us, we've got 20,000 residents and probably 10,000 properties that we can get a huge amount of money. And this is something that if I get the board approval, permission, I'd also like to bring it back to UBCM to see if the government would allow us to make it get this money, and with the support of the other municipalities.
Follow up to that, Director Taylor.
And thanks for the additional information. And just to clarify though, I mean, we'd only get money, you're suggesting we get money, but we'd only get money on houses that burned.
That's correct, but we should be getting money on a yearly basis, just like a grant, like the traffic fine revenue, etc. We automatically get that based on a formula. There would be a formula to calculate it, because it's not just they can't just push a button and say this X amount of money. So it's doable. I still have all the paperwork that I did from the previous municipality that I worked for. And I've got an awesome person in Deborah to help. We can do it as a team, and maybe with a team we could be successful.
Okay, Director Barklow.
Maybe I'm getting ahead of myself, but I'm wondering why the heck you need to employ this marquee insurance company or whatever they're called for 30%. Why isn't that the district just sends a bill to the homeowner, the homeowner passes that bill on to the insurance company, just like many others. You know, when you have a fire and there's a lot of bills and you deal with them.
CAO or staff.
So this would be a lot of administrative work that would be eliminated. That 30% would more than pay itself. Now that you brought this up, there's something else the board can also consider is traffic accidents. When a fire department goes to a traffic accident, the taxpayers subsidizing that accident, even though someone was being reckless, drunk driving, etc. And one of the things I used to work in a previous municipality is we billed the owner of the vehicle and let them recover the money from the insurance company, and that helped the fire department. It would help more the volunteer fire departments now because the funds that they have is very limited, but it really helped more for the municipal fire departments because there's a lot more accidents in the town, and it was a very close municipality nearby that used to do it. So I can't talk about what they're doing now, but I left that municipality 16 years ago and it was very successful.
Okay. And seeing Director Monteith has a hand up.
Yeah, thank you. Through the chair. Is this also a time that we could look at adding some changes to the fees and service bylaw, specifically around fire departments when out to illegal burns?
Staff.
We could definitely look at that. I mean, we've put into the fees and charges bylaw that there will be charges for response from fire departments. So actually that could apply, I believe, to that scenario as well.
Okay.
Thank you. Through the chair, I was reading the bylaw and I read that, but I didn't relate the two. So I wonder if there could be some clarity that would be applicable as well, so that the general public understands that too.
CAO or Deborah?
We'll amend the fees and charges bylaw to be more specific, Because that's something that we should be billing for anyone that's careless. There's a cost again to the fire department, which ultimately reflects that to the taxpayer.
Okay. Call the question on this. This is unweighted corporate. All those in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? Motion carries. The second part of that, Director Coyne, I'm sure you wanted to move it.
I'll make that as well.
Seconded. Any discussion on this? Director Taylor?
Just wondering, where does the revenue go? Does regional district have general revenue, or does it go back to that specific service?
CAO, I'm sure it goes to the service. Or
Everything-
Deborah?
Sorry, directly to the service.
Okay. Anything further? Okay, seeing none. Corporate vote, all those in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? Unanimous, so motion carries. The third part, moved, seconded, thank you. Question, Director Barkwell?
I just want to speak against this motion again, because it seems to me a lot of the work would be what the district has to do already by completing the reports and everything on the incident and sending it to this marquee company when, essentially that's just the basis for the bill. And I just can't see the point of giving 30% to a for-profit company for something that the district, I think, could relatively easily do themselves. Admittedly, I'm not speaking from a point of intimate knowledge of the operations, but if they can make money doing this, I don't see why it couldn't be in the hands of the district. And they'd soon learn the process.
Okay, any further discussion on this? Seeing none, call the question. All in favor? Thank you. Opposed? Director Taylor and Barkwell, that motion would still carry, I believe, even with the weights. Down to C4, Public Notification and Evacuation Route Planning Grant, CAO.
Thank you. To secure provincial funding to update existing evacuation route plans to reflect the current risks, geographic constraints, and communication requirements of the region. The updated plan will enhance safety, preparedness, and regional coordination across the RDOS jurisdiction, with the recommended motion being the Regional District of Okanagan-Similkameen submit a joint application under the 2025 UBCM Community Emergency Preparedness Fund Public Notification and Evacuation Route Planning Grant for $160,000 and manage the grant on behalf of the District of Summerland, Town of Osoyoos, and the Village of Karamias. Staff is here to answer your questions.
Direction on this one?
I'll move it.
Moving it, seconded, thank you. Any discussion? Director Taylor?
I put a question to staff earlier. I haven't had a chance to see if there's a response, but I am wondering if you're doing this for some towns. Has consideration been given to doing this for the town of Okanagan Falls?
So Okanagan Falls will be included in the process. And we can definitely have it as a separate document. So under the electoral area, it would be included, and we can always separate out the information into a document for the town once it's formed.
I think it would be helpful if we already know that train has left the station and at some point we'll get there. This as a separate document from Area D, I think would be helpful.
Yes, that would be the intention.
Okay. Any further questions or discussion on this? Oh, Director Monteith and then Gettins.
Thank you through the chair. Does this include signage that would indicate the evacuation routes when they're established?
Staff?
Through the chair, the signage is not eligible under the grant application, so that would be separate.
Okay. Director Gettins?
Thanks to the chair. Can you tell me if how this works for areas, and I'm thinking specifically about rural Summerland where they don't have a fire department. Is this an evacuation plan? How does it work for areas like that, please?
Over to staff.
So I can address that. I appreciate it. So this plan is more over for the rural areas. It's a high level of the plan. Over what it's going to look at. It's going to look at security of the checkpoints, hazards within the community, evacuation routes at primary, secondary, tertiary. It'll also include over on the communication side of things, using the Voint alert to public notification. And then as well as if there's any opportunities for secondary access roads and those that we can start to investigate that. In a rural area in regards over to the regional district, there's a lot of area that we have to cover. So our first phase that we completed back in 2020, and that was a higher level of the evacuation route plan. This round's going to dive a little bit to the deeper and to the specifics of the community needs. And then it will provide a more fulsome report over for the municipalities that are included in this grant.
Okay. Anything further on this? Call the question. All those in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? Motion carries. Down to finance. Bylaw 3109, 2025, Community Gas or Community Works Program, CAO.
Thank you. This report is to ensure the appropriate funding for the curbside program is available, and with the recommended motion at bylaw 3109, 2025 to authorize an expenditure of $155,006.71 from various community works program gas reserves to purchase curbside carts be given first, second, third reading and be adopted. Both finance is here to answer your questions.
Okay, direction on this? Someone prepared to move it? Moved? Seconder? Okay, it's on the floor. Director Monteith, have a question?
Yeah, through the chair. In the report, it talks about Carameus having an anticipated increase of annual debt servicing on their bill from $28 to $40. Has that been communicated with the residents?
Have to go to staff and see.
It has been communicated that there will be a debt services portion. It's all going to depend on what the end interest rate is that we get the loan at, which we won't know until it comes to the board next week or next board meeting. And it also depends on Carameus on how if they change their mind on how they're financing the bins in that instance.
Okay. Anything further on this? Not seeing any hands. This is corporate vote. All in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? Motion carries. Down to legislative services. E1 was removed, so E2, alternative approval process, loan authorization, CAO.
Thank you. At the April 17th, 2025 Board of Directors meeting, elector response form was approved in relation to the loan authorization bylaw 3106, 2025 alternate approval process. The Local Government Act outlines the declaration of the eligible votes in the election. What this recommendation is that the Board of Directors approve the amendment electoral response form in relation to the loan authorization 3106, 2025 alternate approval process attached to this report. Staff's here to answer questions you may have.
Okay, direction on this.
That's you.
Someone prepared to move it? Moved. Is there a seconder? It's on the floor. Any discussion? Seeing no hands? Nope, no hands. We'll call the question. Corporate vote. All in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? Motion carries. Down to the CAO report, strategic priorities, CAO.
So staff's here for strategic priorities. I'd like Matt to come up and just give you an update on where we're at. As promised, whenever there is a change in our strategic program tracker, we will give the board a update. One thing that I just want to let the board know, and I'm very proud of this, we've actually submitted the strategic program tracker as an efficiency program for UBCM to show that we are efficient and how we track our hours, so that hopefully we will win an award. Matt? You're on.
Go ahead.
No pressure. Thank you. So just a verbal update. It's been a few weeks since I've been here. So behind the scenes, lots has been going on. So here's sort of a high level overview. There are currently 196 strategic actions for 2025 on the plan still. We're 43% through the calendar year, and 15 actions have been marked as complete. So this represents an average of 25% completion across all departments and divisions. And staff are reminded to regularly update the actions and the progress, and we are completing bi-weekly tracking. That bi-weekly tracking is also available to directors. If you need any assistance to view that, please let me know. 3 of the actions that have been completed recently, we just want to celebrate those wins. Action number 25902. This is the Building Inspection Office in Princeton. It was led by the Building and Bylaw Enforcement team. Action 24.077, the Okanagan Falls Waterfront Redevelopment, led by the Community Environment Capital Projects team. And Action 24.082, the Skaha Lake Trestle Redeck and Rails, led by the Community Environment Capital Project team. At the upcoming June 19th meeting, staff will hold a workshop to develop the scope and the objectives of the electoral area boundary review. We'll do that at the next meeting. So please take the next 2 weeks to consider this topic, and we'll explore it further in a couple weeks. That's the plan. Staff are developing a new action submission form. This will capture the description of projects and new initiatives, the scope of the work, and any budget requirements, so we can do planning for 2026. And then looking ahead to 2026, there's 60 actions that have been identified on there, with an estimated 11,910 hours allocated already to support that completion. So about a third of the work plan is on the list. That's it. Thank you.
Okay. CAO?
Very quick update. On June the 20th, I'll be going to Kelowna to meet with the CAOs for the other 2 regional districts in the Okanagan. We look at efficiencies and economies of scale, so we can see if there's something that we can help each other with, and that's on a quarterly basis. We are having a bit of a challenge with the CAO meeting. It's just that we'd like all of us to be there, and at one point or other, one of us can't come. So it's more hoping for that to happen by the end of this month. So, and that's where I will discuss with what we just did for the fire department. And one new thing that's happening is we're creating essentially a CAO duty phone, so that one number you'll be able to contact me 100% of the time. I carry 24/7. However, if we do have 4 deputy CAOs, if there's a change where I'm not available, they will automatically be picking it up, so you're not having to run around and guess who to phone, and that person will be able to help immediately. So that is in the works, and you will get that number within the next 2 weeks. It's in the process of being set up. That number will be given out to the senior staff and you as a directors, so that it's not, I will still have a cell phone where it's open to the public, where they can reach me anytime though.
Okay.
Okay.
Option. Director Federico?
Thank you to the chair. Jim, that number, would it be worth sharing with dispatch in Kelowna? Because I know our fire department has tried the parks number and has not been successful at times of an emergency. So just your thoughts on that.
CAO?
So thoughts are, I misspoke. It's also going to the RCMP and to all the emergency personnel, so that if they have trouble anywhere, I will, or the other 4 will have the ability to act on it immediately.
Okay. Good point. Anything further, CAO?
Nothing further.
Okay. Other business, the chair's report. I think it was last week I attended a meeting with LSIB on low-flying aircraft and concerns over that. I think that's probably something we'll hear a bit more about. I know staff, Mr. Vaisler attended as well, and I suspect they're trying to set up another meeting that I think areas B and G should probably attend to find out what's specifically going on. Director Bush? some of the low-flying aircraft, specifically helicopters and drones that are being used inappropriately, I guess would be the potential wording of it, hovering over people's homes without identification or known causes. That's all I can say at this time. I haven't experienced it, but I gather there are a few cases of that. So.
Yeah, I haven't experienced anything either, especially with helicopters, but drones, that might be a different story.
So it's something that I would encourage. I think there was an invite out just the other day that for the second meeting on this, I would just encourage some of those that were invited to maybe attend, see if it's something of interest. But Director Coyne?
Yeah, so we got sent this after the fact, and we're not really sure what's going on here. But are we talking like commercial drones? Or are we talking like this is where we didn't understand any of what got sent to us? We're just like, what is this all about? But I mean, if you're flying a helicopter, then you've obviously filed a flight plan. That's way out of our jurisdiction, and you know, like there's a whole. I don't really understand where we're going with this idea because.
Well, that's where I would encourage you guys to maybe. I can't explain it because I'm no expert, but my understanding is that not all helicopters or aircraft have to file a flight plan. It's only commercial. If you're under a certain, I think it's 5,000 feet or something, there's no requirement. So it's something to, you can, they do an online as well. So if you can't attend in person, it would be worthwhile attending remotely just to find out a little bit more on it. And Director McCord.
Can I jump in? The Black Hawk helicopters from the RCMP are quite often patrolling the border, and that was explained by the RCMP at one point. And so that's possible if that's what it is, but it should say RCMP on it.
If those are identified.
Yes, so it should be identified.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, there was another meeting, I believe it's in July, that they're requesting on that. So pay attention on that. Otherwise, looking here for verbal updates from your communities. Anybody got something to report? Director Holmes, and then
Action Fest in Summerland this weekend. See y'all there.
Action Fest. Director McCordoff.
I just wanted to invite all of you to Cherry Fiesta, which is on July the 1st this year. It's the 75th annual parade and Cherry Fiesta celebrations. I'm going to have to leave the next RDOS meeting early, so I wanted to put that in there now. Be happy to send you an invitation to attend, and you can walk with me in the parade. I've asked Mark, but he never shows up.
I just don't do parades. That's all.
I know. I just like to give him a bad time.
Anything further over Director Roberts and then Federico?
Yeah, first off, I was hoping to make a notice of motion.
We're going to do that next.
Perfect. Thank you.
Director Federico?
Yes, so if you're looking for something to do tonight, we have Sip, Shop, and Stroll down the lower part of Robinson to help just create some economic opportunities, and there'll be some wineries, and our shops will be open, so that's from 4 to 7. And then Wednesdays now from June till the end of October, we have our Naramata Market on Wednesday nights from 4 to 7, and we have some awesome local vendors there, so come out and support them.
Okay, anything else from your communities, Director Coyne?
Yeah, this weekend is rodeo weekend in Princeton. The Stan Thompson Memorial Rodeo is on the 7th and 8th. Rodeo dance 8 o'clock on Saturday night. So if you're not wanting to go to Action Fest or go shopping, come on over for some rodeo.
Lots going on. Director Taylor, and then we.
Yeah, I'm just hoping that some of you've got some other updates, because for my director's motion, I have some people coming in and they're not coming in until 11:45. So please, let's have more updates.
Well, was kind of why I changed the order accidentally, but on purpose. Director Wee.
So kind of working in the background, trying to get, we haven't had a celebration in the village in a little while for Canada Day. but we're changing the focus a little bit to a multicultural event. So it'll be the first annual multicultural event in Kermias. The big cake is back. We haven't had that in a number of years. We used to do that every year. The bakery would work out a special. It's about, we figured out in sizes of pages, and it was about 16 pages. So if you put that in a square, but lots of buy-in from the temporary foreign workers and local Indo-Canadian, working with the Lower Smith Community Band, but hosted by Mayor and Council. We decided that it was time it came back, so we're putting in the footwork to get it all done, and so yeah, that'll be July 1st in Kermias.
Okay, thanks for that. Anything further from your communities? Did I see Director Johansson?
Yeah, just I'm sure everybody's aware of it, but this Saturday's Rick Canodal, Director Rick Canodal Celebration of Life, and then a ribbon cutting at a new basketball court in Oliver. I think it starts at 11. The ribbon cutting's at 1 p.m.
That's right. Thanks for that reminder. Anything else, Director Barkwell?
Well, to help carry us to 11:45. I'd like to share with you a device that Councillor Train and I were very excited about that we saw at FMC or FCM. There's a device, costs $25. You can put it on your garbage can, and basically you open it manually. The bears can't do this, and it doesn't. It keeps it locked until it's lifted by the truck and dumped over. It's gravity operated, so people could put out their garbage bins the night before instead of getting up at 7 a.m. because they don't know when the guy's coming by. I guess it works well. The City of Toronto's put 500,000 of them out, and I don't know how you might accommodate it. I know bins are going out soon here, but it's something to keep in mind. Maybe the opportunity to come down the road to retrofit some, or allow people to pay the amount to get their bin retrofitted with it.
That's just a suggestion we'll keep in mind. Director Federico?
Yes, thank you, the chair. I also spoke with them and have sent information to Lisa already saying, how do we get these? Please put them on our bins. So information has been given to staff on those because they were awesome. And then I guess just to update, and also I guess to carry us along, FCM was a good week. There was some great vendors there to be able to chat with. Our MP got us into Parliament to watch question and answer period and chat with a shadow minister. So there's some good opportunity and conversation there. And there's just nice to connect with other local officials kind of across the country and just build some relationships with sort of our close neighbors in the Kootenay. Spent quite a bit of time chatting with them. So overall, good week.
Okay. Director Taylor?
Just a question of those who went to FCM. Was there any discussion of infrastructure grant programs and increasing funding thereof?
A chuckle over there. Go ahead, Director Coyne.
Well, there's lots of infrastructure grants. It just depends on what you qualify for. So there's the FCM has the green infrastructure grants and whatnot, but there's not a lot of new infrastructure stuff coming out. When I met with one of the members of the government, I mean, quite bluntly, she said, we don't really know what we're doing yet. So they don't have a budget. So until they have a budget, I don't think we're going to see any new real big spending. Yeah, I think the biggest thing is those FCM grants. So the green infrastructure and the Canada Work stuff and that is, which we already know about. They're just for economy of scale for most of our projects, at least mine, they're not big enough, right? And a lot of them come with a pretty hefty price tag as well. Like they're not 100% funded, they're 50% or whatever, which when you're talking tens of millions of dollars is a lot of money for small communities. So
all right, we'll move on to director's motions. We have two already here that had given notice of motion. I'm going to go to Director Coyne first. Yours.
yeah, so this came about because we're bringing forward water meters. Something we did in our community before we even started talking about water meters was implementing them where if you're building a new house, put in a water meter. And then we went with commercial before we went with residential because it's easier to accommodate the smaller numbers prior to. So the motion is that the regional district Okanagan Smoke Main require the installation of an approved water meter on all new construction within the regional district water service area, and that all commercial and accommodation properties, including those offering short-term rentals within the RDOS water service area, be required to install an approved water meter by December 31st, 2026, and further that effective January 1st, 2027, all commercial and accommodation properties within an RDOS water service area be subject to metered water billing.
Okay, so you're making that motion?
Making that motion.
Is there a seconder for that? It's on the floor. Discussion on it. Director Roberts, and then over this way.
Thank you. And with that, does it specify in regards to if it's at the curb stop versus at the facility?
That would be a policy decision from staff. I think there's still a lot of work to be done here, but I wanted to get it on the table.
Okay, Director Barkwell?
I would speak against this because it's too broad. I think there's water meters are expensive and there's a lot of maintenance to them. They're really not cost effective if you have currently a good water supply. There will come down a point eventually where they will help reduce consumption, which in a manner that's cheaper maybe than putting new supply in additional dams or such. But there could be individual water systems where it's not cost effective. And also speaking to Mayor Coyne's comment on whether it be curb or in the house, the curb ones are at additional expense, well over $1,000. I think what was budgeted for the ones we got the grant was, very expensive and not cost effective as needed. So I think it should be looked at individually per water service area, and then made that decision made.
Okay, did I see a hand from Director Holmes or Taylor? I thought I seen it. Go ahead, Director Holmes.
Yeah, I just wondering, on that, aren't we moving in this direction anyway? And how does this fit into the bigger picture of metering, say, agricultural properties, for example? That's where the biggest bang for the buck comes from for conserving water. So I guess I would like to see how this fits in and staff's, what staff's take is on the timelines and this sort of thing.
Okay. Is there a response from staff on that?
Well, that one's coming up. Just to remind the board that water meters are pretty well linked to grants. And if we start saying no to water meters, the possibility of getting grants, and we're going after some material grant funding, that's going to be very hard to get, I guess. What, Mr. Fillion?
Go ahead.
Yeah, Chair, certainly the direction staff is moving towards full meter coverage, but the preference from our perspective would be to allow the utility and engineering team to develop that plan and roll it out. There's a lot of moving parts and a lot of consideration has to be done carefully. One of the interesting challenges when you're introducing water meters and water rates is you have to very carefully balance what you set those rates at, because of course a water utility is self-funding. So you don't want to overprice it that people conserve water so much that now you don't have enough funds, but you also need to discourage inappropriate use of water. So it's a bit of a balance act. Point being that these things take some time and need to be done carefully and strategically. And from a staff perspective, that's mapping out that process is what we're currently working on.
Okay. Response, Director Coyne, and then Taylor.
Yeah, I think that's the whole point of this is we are moving this direction. We're going to have, I forget how many communities just got grants to do this. We're going to have a billing system in place. We're going to have a reading system in place. We're putting in all the infrastructure right now to deal with these things. So why not, if you're building a new house, why not put it in now if we know in a year or two, hopefully that's the plan, that we start putting them in everywhere else and we're retrofitting all these places. So the other reason I went with the accommodations like the commercial properties is because I don't feel that residential should be subsidizing commercial operations, whether it's a short-term rental or it's a storefront. I don't feel that that's appropriate. So I left agriculture out of this because it's a whole nother conversation, but that's where I went with these two.
Okay, Director Taylor?
Yeah, I have 3 questions. First, Princeton, are you going with pit or in-house?
In-house.
With respect to your motion, how would you handle condos? Some of which would have a plan to be short-term rental, but others wouldn't. And frequently the condo, the billing is to the condo, to the whole condo.
Yeah, so that would be how we would probably look at the same thing if it's going to the one property, but that would be on the building. It wouldn't be in the pit out front because I would like OK Falls. I would personally choose in the building, not on the curb, because you are more of a municipal setting than, say, Caramias or something.
Okay.
Okay.
And my
Continue.
last question, would you consider amending your motion or altering your motion just more to the point of prompting staff to come more hastily with a plan on how this could be rolled out?
Definitely, this is to start a conversation because we're moving forward right now. And I feel strongly that if we don't start thinking proactively instead of reactively, this is going to cost a lot of people a lot more money than it needs to.
So if I can just have a follow-up,
Finish up. Go
because
ahead.
my feeling is like I'm in support of in-house, I'm in support of meters. Just I have some differences on how and where they should be located. So in general, I support the idea of getting more meters, but I think by going with this motion, we're kind of creating a bit of chaos for staff, and it might be better to have staff come back to us. Anyway, that's
Okay.
my.
I see. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Staff?
Chair, yeah, just one point of clarification, if I may. Our bylaws require new builds to install meters now. So the main impact of this motion is the short-term rentals and the deadline for having billing in place for all commercial.
Okay. Director McCordoff?
Yeah, thank you. We're in the process in the town of Vesuvius of putting in water meters. It's a long, involved process. We do put meters in the homes if that is the first point of contact for the water. If it involves water at the curb and the irrigation lines and so on, then we are required to put in a pit meter at the curb. Those have not been put in yet because we're still trying to figure out all the other ones. It's much more expensive to put it in at the curb, like $1,000 worth versus $5,000, something like that. It's quite expensive. However, I was just at an Okanagan Basin Water Board meeting the other day, and if we do not look at water in our watersheds and in our area, we might as well forget even in building more homes and everything. We need to really be careful about how we use water, how we understand water, how we protect water. And so this has to be one of the steps that we take in order to make sure that we look after this resource. It's number one. It has to be. If we don't have water, we might as well all move somewhere else. So I definitely think that water meters are a very good plan. In Vesuvius, we've certainly encouraged or required them to have water meters in any new build, but we're just getting started on this now. Thanks.
Okay, Director Gilbert?
Yeah, I just want to say that I'm going to be voting in favor of this. I think it's a good thing to get. It's basically saying getting the infrastructure in place, and not putting more cost on RDOS and putting it within the build. And so I think it's a good idea to have this, and an expansion into commercial and to STRs as well. So I will be supporting this motion.
Okay, Director Federico, and then Gettens.
Yes, thank you through the chair. I'm in favor of this. I'm not sure that I'm quite in favor of the short-term rentals per se, but I think more tourist accommodations, because that'll reference our vacant homes and more of those commercial properties. So that wording I'd like changed. But I do think that, you know, this is probably a good conversation in the Planning and Development Committee just to further hash some of this out. And it is coming. I appreciate that. But I'd like to see this implemented a little quicker. So I don't know if in there I can defer to a planning and committee meeting if it's on the floor, if that's something that I can do.
Not sure what you mean by defer it.
Or, yeah, because right now, like, it's a lengthy conversation. We need the time to talk about it. So is there a way to move it from a definitive decision on this right now and move it into
Refer it.
refer then? Thank you.
I-
Language. Refer then to planning development.
Mr. Chair, I'm not sure what the approach would be. You could do it two ways. You could just pass and make a new motion asking for this topic to be referred to the planning committee, or you could add on to this, just basically saying the same thing and that this motion be referred to the planning committee for future or further discussion.
Either or, so your choice.
Okay, then I will move to refer it to planning and committee or planning and development committee.
Okay. Seconded. It's on the floor. Any discussion on that, Director? I don't know that we do discussion on referrals, so that's out of the question. And that might just go too long. So I'll call the question. All those in favor, a point of clarification, go ahead. No, just referring it to planning and development for further discussion. So all those in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? Motion carries. Director Taylor, your motion. Go ahead.
Thank you. I just want to provide some quick background here. The community of OK Falls was approved to place 2 baseball diamonds in Keogan Park some 20 years ago, specifically an east and west diamond in the southeast and southwest corners of the park, which is in the ALR. Unfortunately, through a combination of factors, the diamonds were not placed in the locations that were actually approved by the ALC. After several years of use, a neighbor immediately adjacent to the southwest diamond experienced repeated and inappropriate social behavior, affecting that family's right for peaceful enjoyment of their property. And after efforts to resolve the social behavior problems were unsuccessful, the ALC established that the diamonds were incorrectly located. The ALC subsequently ruled that the southwest diamond would require substantial mitigation work and expense, while the southeast diamond, a lesser amount of mitigation work. So the southeast diamond was left in place and the southwest diamond has been removed for several years. However, the RDOS has not permitted the southeast diamond to be used for organized activities, which was also requested by the ALC. Discussions over the past 2 years with neighbors and the commission indicate a strong desire to see, discussions over the past 2 years with neighbors and the Parks and Rec Commission indicate a strong desire to see the remaining diamond used for organized sporting activities. We've been approached for it to be a practice field for South Okanagan Minor Baseball Association and have had to say no. But that there be a condition that there be an effectively enforced code of conduct. This code of conduct or code of practice would be new and has not been shared with the ALC. So that's new information to the ALC, which requires new information in order to hear a request to reconsider. So it's proposed that the southeast diamond be made available for organized activities subject to the organizers signing on with the code of conduct, setting out a standard of behavior, and providing a deposit that may be withheld in the event of inappropriate behavior. I'd like to acknowledge some of the members of our community. We have a immediately adjacent neighbor, Ms. Deborah Toblus. We may have the Pierce family who's contributed to the actual building of the park. And we have several members of the Parks and Rec Commission, our dedicated chair, Mr. Bob Daly, Barb Shanks, member, Judy Garner, a member, no, we don't have Kelvin. And we have Rick Wilson, who is a member and also actually a past chair of this board. So with all that, like the preamble, I'd like to move that the Regional District of Okanagan-Similkameen apply to the Ag Land Commission, requesting that they reconsider and permit the non-farm use of a baseball diamond at Keogan Park in Okanagan Falls.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion on it? We've heard a bit of the background there. Not seeing any hands, we'll call the question. All those in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? Is that an opposed hand, Director Monteith, or was it just a slow one? Slow? Okay. Thank you. Motion carries. Any board members wanting to do a notice of motion, Director Roberts?
Thank you through the chair. As brought up earlier, issues in regards to encampments and garbage and the like on Crown land by Director Gettens. I'm dealing with multiple cleanup areas and lots of volunteers. And I'd like to see a formal process. There's a challenge between, for instance, we have a service or that we have a fee that we collect that we support being able to waive when individuals find garbage here, there, everywhere, and then they fill out a waiver form. But sometimes there's these larger cleanups, and I'm wanting to kind of formalize a process. As stated earlier, we deal with multiple different agencies. It cost me in my area up to 40 grand to deal with the Headley and Olalla cleanup. I'm now dealing with one up at Forest Service Road. We've just had one up on Fairview. And so having something that's more of like an algorithm that's working with staff so that they understand that when the director brings it up that we've got an agency or a group that's come forward, I'd like to be able to have a streamlined process, and it's through the staff and solid waste are able to kind of redirect and direct it to the appropriate agencies using communication. Because otherwise what we're doing is it's either the director trying to make those different phone calls, or it's the individual. The director says, hey, I support this, but I want you to fill out all the waivers, and you really should be talking to the tire guys. And so what's happening right now, it seems to be a one-off each time we kind of come up with a different process. I'm thinking if we can come up with a process that's tied to an algorithm that deals with the different agencies and different situations. For instance, like stated earlier, I've had to deal with Modi, Walrus, at the time Forestry, the RCMP, all congruently in regards to a particular issue, because one had to transfer across said area. So again, I just think that it needs to be a process that's more formalized. And I don't believe it'll add too much more in regards to strategic planning. It's something that we already do, but it's being a one-off thing. So my motion is that we are able to have a formalized process that ties to an algorithm that deals with the specifics around cleanups on Crown areas and working in these multi-jurisdictions. Thank you.
Okay, so that's a notice of motion. Any other notices of motion? Not seeing any hands. We don't have the closed session today, so looking for a motion to adjourn. Moved, seconded. Thank you. All in favor? Great. Any opposed? Motion carries. I will ask, is now the time? I think we were scheduled for lunch at 12:30, but if lunch is here, we can do that early and then go into the committees right after. Okay, we will recess then or take the break for lunch. Half-hour lunch. Corporate, yeah, the one delegation is not able to come, so it's just planning and development after lunch. Some families
Still existing, if you could move the diamonds to where they're supposed to be. Yeah, but it costs a couple hundred grand. Yeah. Yeah, we're just trying to get approval for continued.
So the board knows you're not muted.
There's nowhere near any home.
Matt, I can hear you. I could hear Spencer.
Can you hear me?
Glad your hearing's working.
Okay, we can get started here again, folks. And Corporate Services Committee was canceled due to the delegation unable to attend, family matter or something with them. So we're going to go to Planning and Development Committee, and I will turn it over to Director Weeb to chair that one. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. We'll call the meeting to order. We'll just make sure we have quorum. We don't know they're there.
Yeah.
If those with turned off video could even give us a hands up sign that you're behind the screen, that would be helpful. Thank you.
Erwin, Sarah.
Two. Erwin's.
It's one.
Well, oh. How many do we need?
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 10, 11.
Oh, Sue's here.
12. Okay.
Okay,
So we're
looks
good
like our
now.
numbers are good.
They were good.
So we'll call the meeting to
Sabrina's
order at 12:30. And ask for a motion to adopt the agenda. Motion seconded. All those in favor? And that carries. Move on to official community plan, bylaw amendments, development permit exemptions, CAO.
Thank you. The purpose of this report is to provide options in relations to a proposed amendment to the Okanagan Falls Town Center Development Permit area in the Electoral Area D Official Community Plan and the Naramata Village Center Development Permit area in the Electoral Area E Official Community Plan bylaws. And the administrative recommendation is that the Electoral Area D and E Official Community Plan bylaw be amended in order to provide an exemption to the temporary placement of metal storage containers in the Okanagan Falls Town Center and the Naramata Village Center Development Permit area designation. There is a PowerPoint presentation and staff is here to answer questions.
I had just thought maybe to pause to make sure that the directors affected were actually in the room before we proceed. Director Taylor is here, and I believe have the directors involved, have they seen this presentation before? Then if we can pause for just a moment, I think it's fair to allow for Director Fedrigo to make sure that she's in the building. I think she just stepped out for a moment, so we can just pause for a minute.
I want a PA system in this building.
Well, I think we've given a moment. We've tried to do due diligence to make sure she's in the room. But staff, if you're ready to make the presentation, then please do so. Thank you.
Great. So through the chair, I'll just see my PowerPoint coming up now. Oh, look at that. Excellent. Great. So further to the introduction from the CAO, these are proposed amendments to the official community plans for area D and electoral area E. And they do relate to the form and character DPs for the town and village center DP areas, which I'll touch on in a few slides here. So yeah, so basically, again, just reiterating what the CAO had to say, it is proposing the introduction of a new exemption for the placement of metal storage containers in the OK Falls Town Center and Naramata Village Center Development Permit Area designations. The two areas affected by this would be Area D and Area E, and it would only be their official community plan bylaws. Just a bit of background context for the board. So as you're aware, as a board, you can designate development permit areas for a number of different purposes: hazard lands, protection of the environment, and also for form and character, which is basically the aesthetics of buildings, and apply those to commercial, industrial, or multifamily residential, also known quote unquote as mixed use areas. And so the board has done that in the areas I've already mentioned. So we do have here, you can see the footprint for it, which is the red shaded area, the OK Falls Town Center Development Permit Area. And then similarly in Naramata around the village, we have the Naramata Village Center Development Permit Area. And so the purpose of these is a recognition that buildings can have a significant impact on the overall image of a community, as well as the pedestrian experience and also on adjacent residential uses. And so an objective of these DP areas is generally to create an environment of mixed uses contained within high quality design buildings, which contribute to, and I apologize, this is a quote right out of the OCPs, the creation of a cohesive, identifiable, accessible town center, or in the case of Naramata Village Center, with a strong pedestrian orientation. Some of the issues for consideration in relation to the amendments proposed before you today. The zoning bylaw for Narromad and OK Falls currently does not restrict the placement of metal storage containers within either the OK Falls Town Center zone or the Narromad Village Center zone, and both of those zones generally correspond to the development permit areas. Of course, the qualifier for that is the containers have to be placed within the allowed building envelope, which is setbacks, parcel coverage, and building height isn't being contravened in any way. So the zoning bylaw allows for it, but as you can see here, the official community plans in relation to the form of character DPs do not. So a metal storage container is required to get a DP at the moment, even if it is on a temporary basis. So some of the considerations we've highlighted for you today, the temporary use of a storage container can support pop-up shops, seasonal markets, small-scale entrepreneurial ventures, which in the context of these village and town center areas is not inappropriate. Exempting the placement of these containers, if it's on the basis of a temporary period, can also hopefully support creative short-term economic activity that adds to the vitality and retail/economic diversity of these areas, which again is an objective of the DP. And also we feel that an exemption would remove regulatory burden. And when we say that, it's the perception that the time and costs associated with issuing a DP for a storage container, if it is temporary, may not be warranted given the impact it will have on one of these two locations. Conversely, just for the board's awareness, there may be some concerns with this, though, which we wanted to highlight as well. We recognize that a typical storage container, as is out of the factory, is prefabricated, very industrial in appearance, and may not be easy to modify without a significant cost, especially if those modifications are intended to meet form and character design guidelines. And speaking of the kind of guidelines, again, recognizing the built form of a typical storage container, it may not be realistic to have those meet what we're trying to achieve with the guidelines in terms of facade articulation, roof forms, materials, and pedestrian experiences with them. So the options before you today are pretty typical. I think we're recommending in support of the first one, which would be to introduce the exemption, which would allow for a container to be placed within either one of these two locations on a temporary basis for up to 24 months, provided that the container is put on a temporary foundation, and that we say no variances to a zoning regulation is required, but that's just another way of saying it is complying with the permitted building envelope within that zone. Alternatives for the board to consider as well, if you're not comfortable with that recommendation from staff, is to modify the exemption in some way, or to basically pursue the status quo, in which case a metal storage container would be required to get a form and character DP if it's in one of these two locations. And that's the end of my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions that directors might have.
Well, I think I'll turn it over to, or give the opportunity for the two directors that are directly impacted, if either you want to start and ask questions or comments, please.
Well, I'll make the staff administrative recommendation. I'd like to see that move forward, but I appreciate that Director Taylor may feel differently. So at least from Area E, I will happily move that forward because I would like to see it.
And maybe just a point of clarification. It is presented as D and E. Can those be separated, CAO or CO? Can it be made into two motions if that was required or requested?
We could split it into two.
Okay. So I guess first thing, we'll ask for Director Taylor's wishes, and then we can proceed from there.
Yeah, I think in the absence of having heard a strong demand for this and sort of pressing need for this, and in light of the fact that OK Falls has passed a referendum to incorporate, I'd prefer to focus on issues that have significant need, demand, benefit, etc. If that were to change in the next couple of months, I'd be back knocking on the door, but I haven't heard that. So yes, I'd like to remove this for now.
So then what I hear is that there is a motion from Director Figueroa for her area. Is there someone willing to second it? Thank you. Any further comments, questions for staff? Director Coyne. Oh, Director Holmes?
Yeah, 24 months to me doesn't really feel too temporary. I'm just wondering what the member municipalities do, and in terms of the length of how long. I think some of them were 6 months. And you know, is there any desire to have some sort of consistency in the in our region?
Maybe, oh, sorry, staff, if you want to respond to that.
Sure. So I have to apologize. I'm not familiar with the member municipalities' approaches, but just for the board's benefit, you know, recognizing, I think that generally where we're anticipating seeing shipping containers, or sorry, metal storage containers placed is potentially on vacant lots or lots that haven't been fully developed yet. And so hopefully it is an interim use of the land while redevelopment is being considered. And so in terms of putting forward a time period for your consideration, one of the things we were thinking about as well, if it's a property under redevelopment, that building permit is typically going to be for a 2-year period. And so if we sync up the allowance for the temporary placement of the storage container with the likely duration of the building permit, hopefully the two work and transition from one to the other. So, but certainly if the board's of an opinion of a different time frame is more suitable, we can amend the bylaw to reflect that.
Director Cohen?
Yeah, I come at this from a different way. Right now across all of North America, these small pop-up shops are the backbone of small business right now. We were just in Ottawa. They have 2 streets that are full of these little pop-ups, and one of them was a great little incubator for immigrant entrepreneurs. It was funded by the RBC. There was a support program around it, and I mean that's just one option. When we were at UBCM last year, you would have went out the door around the corner. There was a whole pop-up market over there, and they were all sea cans or storage containers. One of the ones that's like the go-to is in Illinois, and the amount of economic vitality that's been created out of this one, and they're little sheds instead of sea cans, but the economic growth out of that, because it allows somebody to be able to start small and then incrementally grow into something larger. And if you go and you look across North America right now, this is where businesses are starting. So if it's in your town center or somewhere else, and you're allowing these small manufacturers and small producers, bike shops, whatever, be able to get off the ground, this is the way we can support our small businesses and encourage them to grow when the time is right. Renting a storefront at $3,000 or $4,000 a month plus all the utilities isn't going to be realistic for a lot of people. But a small small storefront like this allows you that opportunity. And whether it's, you know, if it's in the Naramata Center and they're open till September and then they open again over the winter period, I don't see anything wrong with that. Or in the village down at your town center. We're looking at it for our market. We're looking at it in a couple spots in our community, and it's the next step in small business.
Thank you. There's a comment. I see Director Monteith, Gilbert, and then Holmes.
Yeah, thank you through the chair. I don't recall this being on strategic planning, so it kind of caught me off guard with this one. So I recall when this bylaw kind of came through, and Apex was sort of the driver of it because there was concerns up at Apex. I understood that there was I guess the variance application would be applicable to these these containers. Is that not the case now?
I'll look to staff to respond.
So the shipping container amendments that the board may recall from a number of years back did come out of Apex and some concerns in that community. But the result of that process was the amendments to the zoning bylaw that articulated what zones, how many placements, stacking, et cetera, that metal storage containers were permitted. And generally in the industrial, commercial, tourist commercial zones, and town center, village center zones, there wasn't much in the way of restrictions. Also recognizing that a lot of those commercial and industrial zones have significantly larger parcel coverage and reduced setbacks than some of the residential zones. But yes, there were concerns in the residential zones. West Bench comes to mind. Where are suitable locations for these? Is it a front yard, side yard, rear yard? So the zoning bylaw speaks to that. But what we're dealing with today is these two specific locations where we have the forming character guideline requirements, but not similar zoning restrictions for metal storage containers. How do we want to resolve that?
I have a follow-up. So,
Follow-up? Thank you.
yeah, sorry. Everybody wants me at once. Specifically Cleedon. So the community church has several of these storage containers and has been operating and using those for their bottle sorting. Could we somehow include that property as being exempt from this?
Your staff?
So in response, the location of that facility in Cleedon is not subject to a form of character development permit area, so it's not affected in the same way as some of the parcels within the Naramata Village and OK Falls Town Center locations.
That answers your question, Director Monteith. Perfect, thank you. Director Gilbert.
Yeah, thank you through the chair. And I just kind of want to echo a little bit of, what Director Coyne has said and just added on to that as well, that, this is what we also learned at SILGA when we had the keynote speaker there from Strong Towns about how when we include a lot of this stuff in the community, we want to create congestion. We want to create vitality by having people come to an area. So not only is it going to help small businesses, be able to get that step up, it's also creating, people to go to an area and be able to bring vitality to this space. So I think this is a good idea to move forward with this.
Thank you for the comment. Director Holmes and then Director McConnell.
So is this limited to commercial areas as well, or residential also?
Staff.
So the item before you today is limited to the mixed town center area, OK Falls, and similarly mixed use village center area in the Naramata, core, historic core, if you will.
So that includes residential? No residential?
No. So for the board's benefit, a rule of thumb in relation to development permits is you can't apply them to single detached dwelling zones. And so these development permit areas correspond to mixed residential commercial zones. And residential in those zones is generally in the form of apartment buildings and townhouses, not single detached.
Okay, we'll go to Director McCordoff.
Thank you. We do not allow these in our downtown area. It's a resort municipality. Our main streets and our downtown area caters to not only people that live there, but to a lot of tourists. So we do not. There's certainly some of them in the industrial zones and the commercial zones and outside of town where we don't have any jurisdiction, but we do not have them in the downtown area.
Director Taylor.
Regardless of the zoning, just in the official town center, looking at this red map here, a number of those homes are single detached residences.
Does staff respond?
Yeah, so those would be historic and considered legally non-conforming now.
Yeah.
And so the intent of those homes is to see them redeveloped to higher density mixed use type structures.
I'll go to Director Fedrigo and then Director Cohen.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So the intention for these ones is that they would only be in operation for about 4 or 5 months out of the year. So it's kind of that May to September, October timeframe. So the 24 months isn't really a big deal because over the 2 years, you're looking at 8 to 10 months of actually being there. They're on wheels, so they can be moved around. There are a couple that are there currently. So this is also why this is kind of being brought forward without being on a strategic priority. So this is limited down to pretty much the Robinson area, and it'll be down where the packing fruit house was. So it is right down in our core economic center. We don't have any vacancy or retail space to trial any kind of retail or commercial things. This is the only way that we're going to be able to do this. The developers that have put this there will be building a mixed use building that will have commercial and residential down the way. So they're testing a bit of that market and they're providing that opportunity for local entrepreneurs to be able to come in and build and grow their businesses. So this is significant for economic development and growth for us, and really the only way to to help encourage and build that entrepreneur within our community. So very much in favor of having this take place.
Director Coyne, you had a, Director Taylor?
I was just curious about sewer and water and power.
The staff?
Well, traditionally,
Yeah. Sorry, so we were having this discussion internally at the staff level. And it's a generally a requirement that wouldn't fall within the zoning or DP regulations, more of a building code compliance issue. And again, depending on where the location of the containers is, opportunities for other shared use of facilities. The containers themselves, and I want to qualify this, may not necessarily have to be connected to water and sewer, but there's a lot of other qualifiers there, right? So.
Yeah, so I think we're talking, listening to some of the conversation, I think we're talking about two different things here. One, we're talking about a storage container that's used as a storage container, and the other thing is a storage container which is being used as a shelf for a commercial space. I wish we had pictures to show because some of them are quite lovely. There's one that I would love to have as a coffee shop downtown. It's a 2-story. It's got a balcony on top, and you can hook it up to sewer and water and all that stuff and run an espresso bar out of it. But most of them are used as just like your traditional like pop-up garden shed type thing. The ones in Ottawa were about 10 by 10, I think. They had a roll-up door on one side and a roll-up door on the other side, and they displayed their wares and off you went. So not that dissimilar from somebody who put up a tent in your farmer's market, but it's more permanent for the period that they're there. They can lock their stuff up and it's safe. The ones in Vancouver, the doors came down on the side, opened up to the side, and you could go in. I think they were about 16, some of them are 16 feet, I think, and some of them were 12. And you could go in and actually shop about inside of them. So there's different types, but they're not just a traditional sea can that says, whatever, Maersk, whatever on the side. These are purpose built for the purpose of being a retail space, and they can be painted. They can look however they want. If you just go online and just look up storage container retails, and there's lots of options on there. These really do add a lot to the downtown. They add to the space that they're in. They create that walkability, which all retail right now is starving for, and it creates that sense of community. So I'll support the motion, and if Director Taylor wants to stay out for now, I totally understand, and I'll support that as well. But I think we need to allow for different commercial space within our region.
So I have Director Fedrigo and then Director Holmes.
Yes, thank you, the chair. I just want to add, so in our Naramata Village Center area, we don't really have houses. I think there's about 3. And honestly, if they wanted to do this in their yard, have at her, because it'd be great to just add more retail space to the downtown area. There's no food businesses that are going into these ones that are proposed. So the water and sewer hookups wouldn't be necessary. And then for anyone shopping, it is in the parking lot with our convenience store. And then we do have bathrooms about, I don't know, a few blocks away in either direction. So that should satisfy those. And then these ones specifically, there are a couple local artists that are already lined up to paint the outside to beautify them and make them look a little better.
Thank you. Director Holmes.
Yeah, just a point that every town's downtown is different. We're not all the same. But generally, what Director Coyne is talking about, it all sounds great. I would just be worried about these things going into residential properties and being used for storage, basically sheds, and they're there, and they really take away. They can really take away from the aesthetic of the quaint, nice looking neighborhoods. Come to Summerland, I can show you a whole bunch of them, and then they're not easy getting rid of them once they're there. So.
If and because we're just bringing a recommendation, right? We don't bring motions out of committee. Is that correct?
Can I just ask, are
Oh,
they,
sorry.
are all of these, the ones that you're talking about, on wheels? So they can be moved from place to place? So they're not one that's sitting there on the property for there forever? Okay, well, that makes a difference too.
But yeah, the corporate, CO?
To the chair, I think what you're asking is whether or not, I believe that their bylaws would have to be amended and brought forward to the board.
So we're bringing a recommendation for Area E to proceed in this direction. So that would likely come to next agenda, agenda after, something like that. Is that correct?
Yeah, so if we get direction at committee today, we'll go through our typical referral process, so agency, public information meeting, notice it, see what kind of feedback comes in. Depending on that, it could be back at committee or it could be for first reading, and go from there.
Okay. Director Taylor?
Does it at some point get on the strategic tracker?
CEO?
It will come back as a report with the same policy that we had. The board can add any project on and only the board can take something on.
Okay. So then perhaps if I can get our corporate officer to read back the proposal as we have it, just so we're clear on, and I think we're just calling for a vote as a show of support to take it to the next level, correct?
Thank you, Chair. So what I've got is that it's been moved and seconded that the electoral area E official community plan bylaw be amended in order to provide an exemption for the temporary placement of metal storage containers in the Naramata Village Center Development Permit Area designation.
Director Fedrigo? Okay, so we've had a motion, we've got a second. I know technically we're not making a motion, but the recommendation, all those in favor? Any opposed? Looks like we're unanimous in our recommendation for the proposed recommendation to go to the next level. Thank you. Director Chang?
I am still struggling on this strategic tracker thing, because I'm wondering, like, at what point does staff say this is going to take 50 hours or 20 hours, and what's your plan for where you're going to get it? Because I know I'm chewing through a ton of hours myself, and yeah, I don't know.
Response from CAO.
So within that plan, there's an operational component, a core component. So this is considered core operational. So I just had to verify it with Chris here, so it doesn't affect our plan. We will be coming back to you and saying something coming off.
And Director Taylor?
So sorry, because I did ask this question when we were talking about the strategic tracker, because I would like, as a board member, I'd like to have a better understanding of how something fits within operational things, because I know we've had a number of questions with respect to Parks and Rec, and how would they fit within the operational day-to-day stuff that we're actually already paying for, and where's the line that somehow crossed and no, this is going to have to go on the tracker.
I believe CAO has a response.
I'll try. So it would depend on the amount of time. Usually an operational project, it's not going to take a material amount of time. But if it's determined that it's going to take more than one department and a material amount of time, then we come back to the board and say, okay, this is a material change. If it's a material change in the workload, then only the board could take something on and only the board could take something off. In this case here, I verified it with Chris. It's a bylaw amendment, a small bylaw amendment. It's not going to be material. And the word is non-material.
Now, Director Monteith, I see you have a hand up. Is it pertaining to, because we have already passed the recommendation, so is there a follow-up conversation?
Yeah, thank you. Yes. Were we not supposed to see the tracker of the board requests? I don't believe that's come back to us in any form. Of the director requests.
CAO?
As there is a workshop next week that has exactly that. It's got the requests and what needs to come off if that comes on. So that's next meeting.
Does that answer your question, Director Monteith?
No, sorry, I thought that there was staff were keeping a tracker or a list of all director-specific requests. And I guess I was curious to what requests were being made and that sort of stuff.
We'll allow CAO to respond.
So any requests that affect the strategic tracker, yes, and there was one, and that was on the change or the review of the boundaries for the electoral areas. So that's right now, as far as the new policy goes in the new system, if it's going to affect the workflow, then it does come back. And so far there is one outstanding.
Director Federico?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I did not ask for this request. This came out from staff. So it wasn't a specific from my area that this came out of. So that's my understanding then why it's moved into a workflow under staff, because I didn't bring it forward. Staff did.
And I'll CAO.
So I understand now what the director's saying. There is a report that comes out that shows what each one of you are asking, because there's a point where one director may get sent out 20 emails to one staff member. And I personally have not been very good at it because I just do it. But I understand what you like, and we will forward that on to the board so that you can see who's asking what and what time. So this is above and beyond the strategic tracker. If we get I might get 10 emails from you in half an hour, and that one email could take me 5 minutes, or it could take me 2 days. So things like that affect the managers, and I expect the managers to actually keep track, because it's something that helps you understand why you're not getting the response on a timely basis, or why all of a sudden personal donated time increased materially. So I will make sure we forward that at the next meeting.
Excellent, thank you. Now, I think we've dealt with the agenda as we had approved. And so I will call for a motion to adjourn the meeting. Motion and seconded at 1:05. And all those in favor? And I would call for opposed, but we don't need to. We're adjourned. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Director Weep, and that's it for today. Everybody, thank you very much for attending.
There, you're done.
Ended way earlier than anticipated, but a few cancellations make a difference.
That's it on the hospital budget, our hospital meeting.